Oh, good afternoon and welcome everybody. This is Halifax Regional Council for November the 17th, 2020. I guess we don't have to add the 2020 part. We're all very much aware that it's 2020. Mayor is having some technical difficulties getting into the meeting, so I will start things off. And we'll start with the usual roll call just to make sure that everybody has their audio and video ready to go. And we will start with District 1. Kathy, are you there?
District 1, Kathy Dale-Gammon, right here.
All right, excellent. Moving on to District 2, David Hensby.
Hello, everyone. Welcome from Preston, Chesapeake Eastern Shore.
All right, you're working okay. District 3, Trish.
Nope, that's
me.
No,
sorry, Becky. See, this is good training for me. Becky, sorry, I was looking at Trish.
Thank you, Councillor Blackburn. I am present. District 3 is here.
All right, perfect. Now we move on to District 4 and Trish Purdy. Hi, Trish.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. You were close. Hi, yep. Can you hear me?
All good, all good. All right, District 5, we're moving downtown. Sam Austin, are you with us, sir?
I am here. All is well in District 5 as far as I know today.
All right, perfect. And we can see you okay, great. All right, now I think when last we left Tony Mancini in District 6, he was having some technical difficulties. Don't know if he is still able to hear us, but Tony, if you're there, give us a nod and a wave. No. All right, we'll get back to Tony then. He can't hear us apparently. All right, District 6, District 7. Where is our District 7?
Hello,
Deputy Mayor. There he is.
District 7, Halifax South Downtown, reporting for duty, Madam Chair.
Excellent. All right, Lindell, are you in the meeting with us? Do we have Lindell Smith?
I believe Councillor Smith may have a conflict with some meetings with Federation of Canadian Municipalities, so he might be in and out of today's meeting.
All right, perfect. We'll catch up with him later then. District 9, Sean Cleary.
Hello, Deputy Mayor. Hello, all councillors. Welcome from beautiful District 9, Halifax West Armdale. You can see the sun is actually shining in my window as I speak.
Good to see, absolutely. All right, thank you very much. District 10, Patty?
No, it's Catherine.
Catherine, sorry.
Yes, representing District 10 from City Hall here today.
All right, perfect. And we can see you and hear you just fine. Excellent. Now we move on to Patty. Hi, sorry about that.
That's all right. I'm here representing District 11, and I'm just down the hall from my colleague from District 10 here at City Hall.
Excellent. All right. And you've got a good connection there. That sounds good. So District 12, Iona.
I'm here live and well, and it's a beautiful day.
Perfect. All right. And District 13, Pam Lovelace.
Good afternoon. I'm excited to be here today. I'm in downtown Hammonds Plains in District 13, Hammonds Plains, St. Margaret's.
Excellent. And District 14, I'm here from the GBA, the Greater Beaverbank area. District 15, Paul Russell.
Good afternoon and greetings from wonderful Lower Sackville. It's a beautiful day here and looking forward to the meeting today.
Perfect. All right. And we can see and hear you well. And finally, Tim Outfit, District 16.
I am here, and I never thought I'd live long enough to see Sean Cleary with a halo, but anyway, there we are. We're ready to go. Looking forward to it. Thank you, Deputy.
Perfect. All right.
The devil quotes scripture, Tim.
That's right.
Perfect. All right. So we will move on to item number 2, the approval of minutes. We have none of those. But we do have an order of business. Number 3, Madam Clerk, do we have any additions or deletions to the order of business?
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. The Clerk's office does not have any additions or deletions from the agenda.
All right, and Councillor Hensby, you had a comment, sir?
Yes, Madam Chair. In camera item 13.2, I'm still having dialogue and discussions with staff on that issue, so I need to have that deferred until I have my opportunity to deal with the CAO and other senior staff on that matter.
All right, perfect. We will, I guess, an order for deferral is always in order. We don't need to vote on that, Madam Clerk?
We do need to vote on it.
Yeah, but we can vote on that, or sorry, council can vote on that in terms of the adopting of the approval of the order of business. There's deferral in there.
Correct. Sorry, I meant, yeah, we don't have to vote on that specific item, but we just vote on the order of business as amended. All right, so looking for a motion to approve the order of business as amended.
Moved,
Pam?
Councillor Benson.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I saw Pam first. Way, you
Seconded.
can second that. Sounds good. All those in favor of the order of business as amended? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Little slow. Aye.
All right, and any opposed? No opposed? All right. We don't need to do a formal vote for that, just a show of hands, correct?
That's correct.
Perfect. But the next one we definitely need to do a formal vote on, and it is the consent agenda, proposing that items 11.12, 11.31, 11.41, and 11.42 be passed on consent agenda. If that is the will of council, I will look for a motion.
I'll move that, Councillor Mason.
Councillor Mason.
Second that, Councillor Russell.
Councillor Russell to second. All right, clerk, we will need a vote on that, please.
Okay, and I'll call out the names. Just a reminder, something that we started last meeting will be going around. I'll start this vote with councillor from District 1, and then each subsequent vote I will be changing that and starting it with the subsequent councils. So for now, we'll start with District 1, Councillor Daigle Gammon.
This doesn't work now, I don't know, but I'm not gonna go to you go to a meeting with cameras.
Daigle Gammon. Okay, I'll come back to councillor from District 1. How about Councillor Hensby?
Affirmative.
Councillor Kent?
In favor?
Councillor Purdy?
In favor.
Councillor Austin?
In favor.
Councillor Mancini, have you been able to?
Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you. Thank you, Councillor Mancini. We're voting on the consent agenda. Do you vote?
In favor of the consent agenda, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mason?
For the motion.
Councillor Smith is with FCM. Councillor Cleary?
Yes.
Councillor Morris?
In favor.
Councillor Cuddle?
For the motion.
Councillor Stockard?
In favor of the motion.
Councillor Lovelace?
For the motion.
And Deputy Mayor Blackburn?
Voting yes on the motion.
Councillor Russell?
In favor?
Councillor Oakwood?
Yes.
And is Councillor Daigle Gammon? Are you connected, Councillor?
Yeah.
We'll try reaching out to her and seeing if she has a connection issue.
All right.
Or is not.
Mayor might have been on as well.
I'm sorry?
Do we get the mayor's vote? I think he's on there now.
Mr. Mayor, are you connected? I believe he's still having some technical difficulties.
Yeah, still having some problems. So, all right, we will, so that motion has passed.
Am I there now?
Oh,
yes.
Is that you, Mike?
Folks, can you hear me now?
Little crackly, but yes.
So you can hear me okay for leading? I think we need that Ethernet thing.
Well, there's problems, Mr. Mayor. We don't hear you very clearly.
Yeah, this is the third computer I'm on.
Oh my.
Is that any better? Can you hear me now?
That is much better.
Sounds good now, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
All right, so just thank you very much, Deputy. Did the agenda change at all when I was away?
Yes, it did. We removed one of the items from in camera at the request of Councillor Hensby, who wants more time to consult with staff.
So that's 13.2.
Yes, it is.
Yes,
13.2.
13.2,
Thank
correct.
you. Okay, everything on consent passed or not passed?
No, consent has passed. We just finished that vote, and we're just moving on to call for declaration of conflict of interest.
Deputy, you
Okay,
might want to read the, as the mayor does, read the motions that were on consent so the public knows.
Oh, that's a fine idea. 11.1.2 is correcting the name of the community of Moosehead. 11.3.1 is improvements to the downtown substantive site plan approval and appeal process. 11.4.1 is the substantial alteration to the registered property at 5241 and 5247 South Street in Halifax. And finally, 11.4.2 is the application for substantial alteration at 1029 Tower Road, a registered municipal heritage property.
Okay, Deputy, let me try to take it away from here.
You got it.
But I'm sensing there may be more trouble. I'm hearing there may be some other trouble with staff here. Okay, thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. And if you're not hearing me, let me know. Consideration of deferred motions of rescission. We called for declaration of conflict. Declaration of conflict of interest. Motions of rescission. Deferred business, hearing none. We will go to correspondence, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The clerk's office has received correspondence with respect to item 11.1.8, and this correspondence has been circulated to all members of Regional Council.
Thank you. And for the benefit of members of council who probably know this, we have a new municipal clerk in the city. He has begun work. Phoebe and April continuing today. I'm not sure for how long, but I'm sure we will all have the opportunity very soon just to express how appreciative we are of the amazing work that they have done in the interim, which has been particularly good during this period of time. So thank you to staff, particularly thank you, Phoebe, and I want to thank you and April very much, and I know we'll see you. Petitions, colleagues? Any petitions? Let me go on the chat, see if my chat's working. Okay. No petitions. I don't see any presentations today. Information items brought forward. We'll move to our reports coming from the CAO. First reading proposed bylaw S1003, an amendment to bylaw S1000 respecting regulation of sidewalk cafes. Council, is there?
Motion.
Councillor Mason.
I move that Halifax Regional Council give first reading to bylaw S1003, the purpose of which is to amend bylaw S1000 respecting the regulation of sidewalk cafes as set out in attachment C of the staff report dated October 19th, 2020 to 1, give the license authority discretion to consider the factors listed in section 15, including any mitigation when determining an annual sidewalk cafe license may be issued to an applicant. And 2, give current seasonal sidewalk cafe license holders the opportunity to apply for an annual sidewalk cafe license prior to December 31st, 2020. And 3, require owners to be responsible for sidewalk snow removal where sidewalk cafe license is issued. I so move.
Second, Councillor Cleary.
Councillor Cleary on the second. Councillor Mason, anything on it?
No, I'd like to thank staff for bringing this forward to address the concerns we're hearing from the business community around continued access to outside areas to serve food where possible during COVID. So this is something we've certainly heard from the bids in the Chamber of Commerce that needed to happen, and here it is. So support first reading. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Seeing no other speakers, ready for the question, colleagues?
Question.
Question?
Phoebe.
Councillor Diego Gammon,
Vote in favor of the motion?
Councillor Hensby,
Affirmative.
Councillor Kent,
In favor?
Councillor Turdy,
In favor.
Councillor Austin,
In favor.
Councillor Mancini,
In favor of the motion.
Councillor Mason,
In favor of the motion.
and Councillor Pickering.
Yes.
Councillor Morris,
In favor.
Tuttle,
In favor.
Councillor Stoddard,
Sorry, in favor.
Councillor Lovelace,
In favor.
Deputy Mayor Blackburn,
Voting yes on the motion.
Councillor Russell,
In favor?
Councillor Outfit,
Yes.
Mayor Savage,
In favor, the motion carries. Thank you. 1112, Moosehead to Moose. Is proposed administrative order respecting child care centers, municipal child care policy. Mason had asked in advance to put that on the floor. I'll have Councillor Kent perhaps second that, if that's okay. Councillor Mason?
Yeah, that would be great. I move that Halifax Regional Council 1 adopt Administrative Order 2020-013-OP respecting childcare centers as set out in Attachment 1 of the staff report dated October 1st, 2020, and 2, direct the Chief Administrative Officer to return to Council with proposed less than market value leases for nonprofit childcare centers currently leasing space in municipal facilities as existing leases expire. I so move.
Okay, that'll
Second?
be seconded by Councillor Kent. Councillor Mason?
Yeah, so to council, I will say, just last meeting we were debating. This was my second oldest motion to potentially be taken off the list of things to consider, right? And here it is today, ta-da, right? So maybe we need to keep that in mind as we're trying to process the rest of that list. I'd like to thank staff for bringing this forward. The intent of this, especially for the new councilors who weren't here for that initial debate, which would be, because I think it was before 2016, all y'all except for Hensby and Outhead and the mayor. The issue was that Spencer House Senior Center, Spencer House and the South End Daycare have been the principal tenants of Spencer House on Morris Street since it was built. And in fact, that building was built with money from the South End Daycare, which is a not-for-profit and actually offers a mixture of at-market and subsidized spots. And in fact, the setup of having a senior center, a daycare, and the St. Mary's Elementary School right behind it with that shared driveway and parking was a wraparound school before we had wraparound schools. And so when the move came to move to market rent, that was something that I felt was unfair, given they helped pay to build the building that they're in and have paid to expand the building just about 5 or 6 years ago. What I also like about this administrative order, and I've discussed it with some of you, is I think it is appropriate, and it's in the rules as they're presented in the proposed, where we'll end up after the interim is replaced, is that I think it's appropriate that we consider placing childcare facilities run by not-for-profits in our recreation centers. And that was something that we were unable to do without this policy. So I know, for example, and I'll just say it for the record, it was something that was considered and staff required it to be taken out for the forum redesign, for example. And I think that that's actually something that should be reconsidered now. And I hope that as we move toward a final design for the replacement or renovation of the forum, that would be something that would be allowed. And certainly I'm really glad to see this here. It's something that I think the city needs to be doing. So thank you very much for that. I look forward to council's support.
myself.
Thank you, Councillor Kent.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm really pleased to actually see this, and well done, Councillor Mason. As a former early childhood educator and owner-operator of a private facility, I'm certainly in favor of anything we can do to facilitate more children having access to these programs. And I certainly agree with the not-for-profit layer of process that we can ratify here. I also, as a former ministerial assistant to the Minister of Education and Early Childhood Development at the province, I think this is a really exciting for me to be able to be part of now in the new stage of my political career. I do have a question and a potential amendment if it's required, but I'll ask staff or someone to speak to this. In all of the information that I see here in this report, because I wasn't part of the original conversation around it at all, I do see that it really is only identifying childcare centers. Now, inherent in some of those centers would certainly be early learning and early childhood development, which is more what we call preschool as opposed to childcare. Yes, it sort of equates to the same, but it is actually a little different. One is just major layer of the preschool area, education side, as opposed to, and usually 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds, as opposed to the younger age group. So I want to know, would this capture early childhood education centers as well, who might only be offering that particular layer of educational experience in childcare for profit and not for profit? And if it isn't, I would like to consider having a minor amendment to include it. I do note here as well that I also think that the recognition of that would be important in relation to the signed agreement for Canada Nova Scotia Early Learning and Childcare Agreement. It would be kind of in keeping with showing that there is some identifiable space that we as municipality can do in keeping with that, in case any more collaborative approaches to anything comes along. So if staff could just, or someone could let me know if that would be included and if it's I guess it's in order that I could add that as an amendment.
I'm in real trouble hearing. I'm assuming it's, so I apologize. We've got this thing pulled together with toothpicks and baling wire today. So that was a question of staff, I think, Councillor Kent.
Yes, if we have anyone.
Early learning. Okay, is Denise or Maggie with us?
Hello, Mayor. Through you to the councillor, it's Maggie McDonald speaking, Manager for Regional Recreation Services.
Okay. Hi, Maggie.
Hi, and I'm just, the administrative order speaks specifically to licensed childcare centers, so I would just refer perhaps to, I think the amendment would be in order, subject to any confirmation from our solicitor, but as it stands, I'm not sure that that would be captured.
Oh, I'm not sure we
can.
Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, John, if you can hear me.
Well, the admin order as drafted, if we were going to amend it, we would need to defer this until we could go away and redraft the admin order. But what this covers is daycares as defined in the Daycare Act. And I believe it's probably broad enough, but I can't tell you for certain off the top of my head. I'd have to go to the regulations under the Daycare Act. There's not clear in the actual act itself.
Councillor Kent?
Okay, well, I think what I'll do is I'm not going to rain on anyone's parade today. I think that this is a good motion to move forward. I would like an opportunity maybe just to chat with Councillor Mason and staff around maybe a future supplementary report or something to that nature to identify if this is appropriate to include. I do believe strongly that it's an important piece as well. It's just a different form that's not all inclusive, but it captures parts. And I hate to see that opportunity lost for those kinds of centers. So for now, I'll just leave it for any other councillors to offer and look forward to supporting it.
All right, I'm lost here, guys. I think Councillor Cleary is up.
Thank you, Your Worship. And I'll put on, I wear several hats. I'll put on my co-owner of a daycare hat. My wife and I have 2 Montessori preschools, which are preschools. They are not daycares in that traditional sense. And the Daycare Act, which I know well from working in the Department of Education and from being on this side of it, does include early childhood education of all forms. And so ours is a preschool, Montessori preschool, 3 to 5 year olds. And the Daycare Act, we're licensed, we're a private operation, obviously, but our admin order and our legislation would only let us allow below market leases to nonprofits, not for private profit organizations, but it would certainly cover early childhood education in all forms.
Thank you. Are we ready for the question, colleagues?
Question.
Councillor Kent?
In favor.
Councillor Purdy?
In favor.
Councillor Austin?
In favor.
Councillor Mancini?
In favor of the motion.
Councillor Mason?
In favor of the motion.
Councillor Cleary?
Yes.
Councillor Morris?
In favor.
Councillor Cuddle?
In favor.
Councillor Stoddard?
In favor of the motion.
Thank you. Councillor Lovelace?
In favor of the motion.
Deputy Mayor Blackburn?
Voting yes on the motion.
Councillor Russell?
In favor.
Councillor Outfit?
Yes.
Councillor Daigle Gammon?
Voting in the motion.
Councillor Hensby?
Affirmative.
Mayor Savage?
Yes, in favor of the motion. The motion carries. Thank you, Councillor Mason. Nice to see this one back here. 11.1.4 is the council meeting schedule. I'm going to go to the deputy mayor who might put that recommendation on the floor.
Sure thing. I move that Halifax Regional Council 1 suspend the rules of procedure under Schedule 6, the Executive Standing Committee Terms of Reference of Administrative Order 1, the procedures of the Council Administrative Order, and 2, approve the proposed 2021 council meeting schedule as outlined in Attachment 1 of the staff report dated October 27th, 2020. I so move.
Cheers.
Councillor Russell, I'll second it.
Councillor Russell will second. Thank you. Councillor, I don't know if folks can hear me. Deputy Mayor, you're good on that?
I am. This is just sets forth our path for next year, when we're going to meet, so we can all sort of plan ahead.
Thank you. Councillor Russell on this?
Yeah, thank you very much. So 2020 and the year of COVID has disrupted a lot of things. And one of the things that it disrupted is I was supposed to get married earlier this year. And that was moved to July 24th, 2021, which is right in the middle of the two council meetings that we have in July. And although I do fully intend on attending my wedding, I will be distracted because of preparing for the potential council meeting on July 27th. So I'm wondering if we could amend this a little bit and move the July 27th meeting to August 3rd.
Nail day weekend?
I feel like it's the first time you've done this marriage thing, so it should be easy second time around, so.
Councillor Russell, Councillor Russell, you're proposing, I'm just looking for the, you're proposing to move the meeting of July the
I'm looking to move the meeting, the potential meeting for July 22nd, and if not August 3rd, then August 10th.
Okay. So Councillor Russell is proposing to move July 27th to August 3rd or 10th.
I think we need to find out first if we're all invited.
With a 50-person limit, I would have had to limit things incredibly. So the 16 councillors, the 15 councillors and the mayor would more than exceed my capacity at the wedding.
That's a no.
It's fine. We can join online. Okay, so is anybody violent? My first thought was the same as Councillor Hensby's, that Natal Day weekend's a busy weekend, but who the hell knows if we're going to have a Natal Day weekend as well with what's happening this year. But I do like to see if we can keep a bit of a gap in August for people to take some time. So let's propose August the 3rd instead of July 27th. I think we all understand. When's the date of the wedding again, Paul?
July 24, Saturday.
And what's for dinner?
We're having,
instead of the wedding?
We are planning,
Haggis.
if we are still having a caterer. Yes, haggis, tatties, and neeps were certainly proposed as the appetizer. We would be having a stuffed chicken breast with some amazing stuff. The caterer has done a phenomenal job. Later on in the evening, there would be a donair fountain. We were proposing having a full pipe and drum band.
That's great. You're not inviting us, so don't tell us about the menu. So
I asked.
I can't. I'm missing this wonderful banter. I think all I see is lips moving. But so I don't want to be seen as being in favor of accommodating weddings. But let's say we move the meeting of July 27th to August the 3rd. Okay. People can show me by a thumbs up on the screen if that's okay, or do we have to vote on it? Phoebe, do we have to vote on it?
I prefer the 10th.
Mr. Mayor, if the amendment is considered friendly by the mover, then that should be okay. Otherwise, then perhaps you will need a separate vote.
Okay,
Sure.
Deputy Mayor, how do you feel about romance in the sun?
Not a huge fan of haggis, but I'll see this as a friendly amendment.
Okay, I didn't hear the haggis part. I'm glad that this thing doesn't work that well. So we're going to move it to August. Ready for the question?
Question?
Councillor Purdy?
Sorry, yes, in favor.
Councillor Austin?
In favor.
Councillor Mancini?
in favor, even though we're not invited.
Councillor Mason?
Always in favor of love.
Oh, Joe.
Councillor Cleary? Councillor Cleary?
Phoebe, he had to step out. He said he'd be back between 2 and 2:30.
Oh, okay, thank you. Councillor Morris?
Voting in favor.
Councillor Tuttle?
In favor.
Councillor Stoddard?
In favor of the motion.
Councillor Lovelace?
Voting yes.
Deputy Mayor Blackburn?
Voting yes for romance.
Councillor Russell?
In favor of haggis.
Councillor Outfit?
In favor, but not the haggis.
Councillor Daigle Gammon?
Voting in favor of the motion.
Councillor Hensby?
I do.
Councillor Kent?
I don't know after that one. I'm in favor. I think there's a little TMI going on here, but I'm in favor.
And Mr. Mayor?
I'll vote in favor, but if you fall out of love or something, we're moving it back, Paul, so just keep us in the loop. That carries. Thank you, Councillor, and thank you, Deputy Mayor. 11.15, I don't believe passed on consent. That is the proposed amendments to Administrative Order 29, Civic Addressing Policy, Street Naming. Council, what is your wish?
I'll take that one, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Austin.
Is that Slam and Sammy Austin? Go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that Halifax Regional Council adopt the proposed amendments to Administrative Order 29 respecting civic addressing policies in order to approve: 1, the naming of 5 new private lanes is identified in Attachment A and maps 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 of the staff report dated October 27th, 2020. 2, the naming of 2 public streets is identified in Attachment A and map 6 of the staff report dated October 27th, 2020. 3, the renaming of a portion of Park Avenue, Dartmouth to Flotilla Lane, Dartmouth is identified in Attachment A and map 7 and 8 of the staff report dated October 27th, 2020. And 4, the retiring of 2 private lane names, Cove's Edge Court, Eastern Passage, and Lodge Crescent, Halifax, as identified in Attachment A and maps 9 and 10 of the staff report dated October 27th, 2020.
I'll second that. Councillor Russell.
Seconded by Councillor Russell. Councillor Austin, anything to it?
Just very briefly, Mr. Mayor, for anyone in Dartmouth who's curious about this, this is the little stub of Park Ave that you see as you come down Alderney. The 2 park and ride parking lots for commuters catching the ferry are there. It was disconnected from the rest of Park Avenue when Alderney Manor was built, and the street in between was closed by the former city of Dartmouth. And so this little stub is disconnected from the rest. There's really nothing on it. It looks more like a driveway entrance to municipal parking lots. And since the 2 parking lots are technically part of the common, there will be never anything built on this either. So it really is rather glamorous, unremarkable little stub of a stub that is technically a street. So it needs a name. So Flotilla Lane, in recognition of all the activity in the harbor, is what has been suggested. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Lovelace.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was very pleased to see this motion. Thank you, Councillor Austin, for moving this. Here in Hammonds Plains, we also have a Micmac Drive as well as a Micmac Park. And so if in favor, I would like to add a friendly amendment to this motion.
You're the wrong one, Pam. Wrong
Are you
agenda.
on the? You're on the wrong agenda. 1.5.
You're getting ahead of yourself.
Thank you. I was just so excited.
We'll come back to you, Councillor, when that comes up. Thank you, Councillor Kent.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to make a comment for for District 3, particularly the Eastern Passage area. That Cove's Edge Court, I've lived here in the Eastern Passage for over 35 years, and I had no idea what that was, but it makes sense. There's a particular area next to Silver's Lane, and there's a lot of activity going on there. So this was in relation to a application that was on the table that is now changed, and so they're just correcting that. They're not moving forward with it. We'll see what comes along later. In fact, if it needs to be, I think it might actually only be a driveway after this.
1 year, you can take it left.
Hopefully that wasn't an amendment. Councillor.
Can't hear you. What's going on?
Not sure. Can you hear me okay?
Right now, yes.
Okay. Okay. All right. So is that all the comments on that? Ready for the question, unless I missed
Question?
Something here. Baby?
Councillor Austin?
In favor.
Councillor Mancini? Councillor Mancini, are you in? Thank you, in favor. Councillor Mason?
For the motion.
Councillor Morris?
In favor.
Councillor Cuddle?
In favor.
Councillor Stoddard?
In favor of the motion, sorry.
Councillor Lovelace?
In favor of the motion.
Deputy Mayor Blackburn?
Voting yes on the motion.
Councillor Russell?
In favor?
Councillor Outfit?
Yes.
Councillor Daigle Gammon?
Voting in favor of the motion.
Councillor Hensby?
Affirmative.
Councillor Kent?
In favor.
Councillor Purdy?
In favor.
Mayor Savage?
Is that me? Sorry.
Mayor Savage, your vote on
Yes.
11.5?
Yes, I'm in favor of that, and I think that passes. Colleagues, I've been asked by our tech folks if we can take a 5-minute break, and so we're going to do that. There's a number of issues going on, so 5 minutes, Corey, you think? Okay, so we'll come back at 6 o'clock for the, no, we'll come at 10 to 2 o'clock, 1:50, colleagues.
Mr. Mayor, do you want us to leave the actual meetings, the teams?
No, I don't think so, no. I think you can just go on mute or take your camera off. We'll come back at 1:50.
Mayor, if I may, I noticed that there is a Teams update that ran automatically for a lot of people last night. So if you haven't restarted your computer in the last day, you should do so right now. It might help.
Yeah, we've restarted 2 computers already. That's the problem, both of them.
Yeah, no, I don't know how to
and-
fix your problem, sir. I meant the rest of them.
Yeah. All right, thanks, guys. We'll see you shortly.
Okay, let's call. All right, Phoebe, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Mike.
Okay. Anybody else? Mancini, can you hear me? Kathy Daigle Gammon, can you hear me?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I can hear you. It's Kathy.
Okay, we're going to try this. I'm in the cone of circular zodiac silence here to see if we can get this thing to work. It's a new technological thing. Okay, Phoebe, April, should we go?
Yes, Mr. Mayor?
Do we have all of our councillors?
Just double checking now. Just give me 1 sec, please. I am noticing, Mr. Mayor, we can't see your video.
Oh, great. You can't see me, eh?
No, we just, oh,
No?
it's just a black screen.
Is there something covering your there we go.
There I am. Can you see me now?
I can see you now, Mr. Mayor. Perfect.
Okay,
Yeah,
let's
we
go
can see
live. Let's go live as soon as we can.
Okay, sending you live now.
Okay, folks, so we're back. I'm going to move to 11.16. Incentive Zoning Agreement 1441 Hollis, Councillor Mason. Councillor Mason. All right.
Mr. Mayor, Councillor Mason does not appear to be in the meeting at the moment. We'll reach out to him and see if he's having trouble connecting.
Okay, so I'm getting a message. You can still hear me though, correct?
I can hear you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. All right. Perhaps we can come back to that one and move ahead. Is that possible, Phoebe? Can we go to the councillor appointments?
Yes, you may.
Unless Councillor Mason is with us. Okay, well, he's gonna, I got him moving the next one too, so. Are we having, is it just Councillor Mason that's not connecting with us right now, Phoebe?
I'm back.
Councillor Mason, nice to hear your voice.
Thank you for waiting.
Not a problem. We were very, no, we weren't going to go anywhere without you because you're all over the agenda here. So 11.1.6 is the Incentive Zoning Agreement 1441 Hollis, Councillor Mason.
Sorry, I thought that was on the consent agenda.
No. Nope.
All right. Okay, I'll move it. I move that Halifax Regional Council adopt and authorize the mayor and clerk to enter into and execute the incentive and bonus zoning agreement as provided in attachment B of the staff report dated October 30th, 2020 for a 6-story mixed-use building in 1441 Hollis Street, Halifax.
Second, Lisa.
Second by the Deputy Mayor. Councillor Mason, anything on it?
No, other than to say to staff, I think that it's a good move to encourage developers to contribute to the undergrounding of the power. The last thing we want to see is these weird little, 4 or 5 poles sticking up where everything around them is undergrounded. So happy to see this. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Ready for the question, Phoebe?
Councillor Mancini? Councillor Mancini?
For the motion.
Councillor Mason?
For the motion.
I believe Councillor Smith is not with us, and same with Councillor Cleary. So moving on to Councillor Morris.
In favor of the motion.
Councillor Cuttle?
In favor.
Councillor Stoddart?
In favor of the motion.
Councillor Lovelace?
Voting yes.
Deputy Mayor Blackburn?
Voting yes on the motion.
Councillor Russell?
In favor.
Councillor Outfit?
Voting yes.
Councillor Daigle Gammon?
Voting in favor of the motion.
Councillor Hensby?
Affirmative.
Councillor Kent?
In favor of the motion.
Councillor Purdy?
In favor.
Councillor Austin?
In favor.
Mayor Savage?
In favor of the motion. The motion passes. Thank you, Councillor Mason. We will move to 11.1.7, Councillor appointments to boards, committees, and commissions. Councillor Mason, I have your name on this.
All right. I will move that Halifax Regional Council one, suspend the rules of procedure requiring executive standing committee and community councils to review the nominations outlined in this report and make recommendations to Halifax Regional Council. 2, appoint the councillors to boards, committees, and commissions for term of November 2022, as outlined in attachment 1 of the staff report dated November 9th, 2020. And 3, appoint the councillors to boards, committees, and commissions who are successful candidates after a vote by secret ballot for a term to November 2022, and 2 of the councillors for Halifax Water Board for a term to November 2023, as outlined in attachment 2 of the staff report dated November 9th, 2020. I so move.
Second.
Second by Deputy Mayor. Councillor Mason.
So, there's been a lot of discussion going on and emails flying around, and I'm wondering if staff, if the clerks or the solicitor could comment, would it be possible to just make an omnibus motion of a bunch of appointments for, say, the 5 standing committees for Halifax and West Community Council, and just do it all at once rather than go through this one at a time agonizingly for the next 2 hours? Fingers crossed.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, Phoebe Rye, your deputy clerk. However council sees fit. The only issue is if there isn't agreement in terms of how many councillors are being appointed. We have a secret ballot ready to go on SurveyMonkey, so we might need to break those apart separately if there is any discussion on those items. But yeah, whatever works for council, we're happy to facilitate.
So I will preface this by saying that I think that what I'm about to move is correct, but if there's anybody on Halifax and West or council as a whole that disagrees with any part of it, like all of it's subject to change and can easily be changed. So I'm gonna try this so that we can try and shortcut to the boards and commissions. So I would move on behalf of Halifax West Community Council that Councillors Smith and Cuttle be appointed to CPED, Mason and Stoddart to TSC, Cleary and Morris to Environment Sustainability, Cleary and Morris to Audit, and Cuttle and Stoddart to Appeals.
Can we just clarify? Can you just clarify those acronyms for those who are listening?
Community Planning, CPED is Community Planning, TSC is Transportation Standing Committee. And I can cut this into the chat. Just give me a second. I restarted my computer as I recommended, so everything's closed. Hold on one second.
So just as Councillor Mason is putting that into the chat, just to note, in terms of the composition of the standing committees, appeals is a little bit different than the other standing committees. Appeals, there is required to be 2 counselors appointed from each community council. The other standing committees require one appointment per community council and then 3 counselors at large. So council can absolutely choose to do those the same way, but there is also flexibility. You know, if there's only one member of Halifax and West Community Council, for example, on transportation, there could be other representation. There could be different compositions depending on council's will.
So thank you for that, Phoebe. So my intention here and what I've discussed with I think almost every single one of you is I think if possible it would be good to there you go, I finally got it open. Let me cut that into chat for everybody. I think it's good to try and have a mix of returnees and new folks, and to have balance between the community councils on the standing committees of council to kind of preserve that regional balance. So let's see. It's been moved and seconded. I put it in the chat so the clerks can have that for their records. If those nominations stand, we could move on to other nominations to fill for you know, 2 each for the other community councils, and then we could have this done a lot more quickly than we otherwise would have.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
So that motion is on the floor, seconded by Deputy Mayor. We have a couple of people to speak on this. Councillor Austin?
I was actually looking to, I like this approach of the community councils putting forward slates. I think it makes things much cleaner and ensures we have representation on each standing committee from across the municipality. And so Harbour East, as we've sorted ourselves out, and we have a similar sort of slate ready to go. So I can introduce that now to add it to this motion, or we could vote on this one and then we can vote on each community council's motion separately.
Phoebe, does it matter?
Mr. Mayor, no, whatever works for council.
All right.
Well, rather than having us go through 3 different votes for something that I think is largely settled, I'd like to add 2 appeals, and this is the Harbour East results. Councillor Kent, Councillor Hensby. For audit, Councillor Purdy and Councillor Hensby. For community planning, Councillor Austin and Councillor Purdy. For environment, Councillor Austin and Councillor Mancini. And for transportation, Councillor Kent and Councillor Mancini. So then that's 2 from each of Harbour East for each council committee.
Okay.
Sir, I'll get you to just repeat that one more time for me. Sorry.
I'll paste it in the chat.
Okay, thank you.
Just while we do, was there a second for that, by the way? Councillor Mancini. Councillor Russell, I got a message. Did you want to speak to the process?
Yeah, I would simply prefer a single vote at the end, just in case we have more people in the committees than we have positions in the committees. So I wouldn't want to do each community council on its own. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So by my reading, that's 2 of the community councils. Does the 3rd community council wish to move a slate as well?
Mr. Mayor, sir, yes, I'm just going to paste into, I think that should work. There we go. Yes, so from Northwest Community Council, we've gone around the ring, and we have come up with, for the Appeals Committee, Councillor Lovelace and myself. Audit and Finance, Councillor Daigle Gammon and Councillor Russell. For CPED, Councillor Lovelace and me. For Environment, Councillor Daigle Gammon and Councillor Lovelace. For Transportation, Councillor Outfit and Councillor Russell. Don't know if we're getting into the external boards at this point, but
standing committees,
just the
standing committees for now. Yeah.
Okay, then that wraps that up.
Okay, Phoebe, did you get those, or would you like those repeated?
I think I got those. So appeals would be Councillor Lovelace and Blackburn. Audit would be Councillor Daigle Gammon and Russell. CPEG would be Councillor Lovelace and Blackburn. Environment and Sustainability would be Councillor Daigle Gammon and Lovelace, and Transportation would be Councillors Outfit and Russell.
Okay. So those are the slates that are posted. Is there any discussion on on those? Shall we go to a vote on the whole thing, on the standing committees? Phoebe?
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor?
Let's go to a vote on that then.
So go to a vote on the standing committee appointments.
Yes.
We'll start with Councillor Mason.
For the motion.
And Councillor Smith.
For the motion.
Councillor Cleary, are you with us? I think he's still out. Councillor Morris.
In favor of the motion.
Councillor Cuddle.
In favor.
Councillor Stoddard.
In favor.
Councillor Lovelace.
Voting yes.
Deputy Mayor Blackburn.
Voting yes on the motion.
Councillor Russell.
In favor.
Councillor Outfit.
Yes.
Councillor Daigle Gammon.
Voting in favor of the motion.
Councillor Hensby.
Affirmative.
Councillor Kent.
In favor.
Councillor Purdy.
In favor.
Councillor Austin.
In favor.
Councillor Mancini.
In favor of the motion.
Mr. Mayor.
In favor of the motion, so that motion passes. Thank you to the folks who did the work on that. Council, what is your wish next? Councillor Mason.
So I spoke with Councillor Lovelace earlier today, and what I would ask is there's two opportunities for someone from Halifax to be on NSFM. So both of us are the only ones who wanted to do it. So yay us, we're both going to get what we want. We have a turnover. I think the new councillors may know that I'm the past president. Half of our board is going to be new. And I would ask if I could have a nomination for NSFM now so that we can have that continuity and I can support the presumptive president, Emily Lutz, and the presumptive vice president, Amanda McDougall from Cape Breton, while we bring on the new board members. And I'll be happy to nominate at the regional caucus, Pam Lovelace, to join me on the board. A reminder, you all need to go to the regional caucus so that people vote. So I'll send out the reminder in an email in a moment. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I will second that.
Seconded. Anybody else on that one? We have to vote on that individually, I assume, Phoebe?
That would probably be for the best, just for clarity, yeah.
Let's do that then.
So on the appointment of Councillor Mason as the past president and of Councillor Lovelace as a potential nominee to represent the regional caucus at the Nova Scotia Federation of Municipalities, I will begin with Councillor Smith.
For the motion.
Councillor Cleary is not with the meeting. Councillor Morris.
In favor of the motion.
Councillor Cuddle.
In favor.
Councillor Stoddard.
In favor of the motion.
Councillor Lovelace.
Voting yes.
Deputy Mayor Blackburn.
Voting yes on the motion.
Councillor Russell.
In favor.
Councillor Outfit.
Yes.
Councillor Daigle Gammon.
Voting in favor of the motion.
Councillor Hensby.
Affirmative.
Councillor Kent.
In favor.
Councillor Purdy.
In favor.
Councillor Austin.
In favor.
Councillor Mancini.
In favor of the motion.
Councillor Mason.
In favor.
And Mr. Mayor.
In favor, thank you. So that passes. Congratulations, Councillor Mason. Councillor Blackburn.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I would like to make a couple of nominations for the library board. Would like to nominate Councillor Outfit and Councillor Mancini.
Councillor Outfit Mancini, is there a second for that?
Second.
Thank you very much, Councillor Austin. Yeah, I just wanted to nominate these two mainly because the Bedford Library project is something that is just getting started, and I know that Tim wants to be there to sort of oversee and fight for Bedford. And Councillor Mancini, I recognize that there's a lot of renovations and activity taking place surrounding the Dartmouth North Library, and as the councillor for the area, he expressed an interest in being a part of that project. Thank you.
Discussion on that? Ready for the question?
Okay, the question on the appointment of councillors Outhitt and Mancini to the Halifax Regional Library Board. We'll begin with Councillor Morse.
In favor.
Councillor Cuddle.
In favor.
Councillor Stoddard.
In favor of the motion.
Councillor Lovely.
In favor.
Deputy Mayor Blackburn.
Voting yes on the motion.
Councillor Russell.
In favor.
Councillor Outhitt.
I suppose so.
Councillor Dabo Gammon.
Voting in favor of the motion.
Councillor Hensby.
Affirmative.
Councillor Kent.
In favor.
Councillor Purdy.
In favor.
Councillor Austin.
In favor?
Councillor Mancini.
In favor of the motion.
Councillor Mason.
In favor.
Councillor Smith.
In favor.
And Mr. Mayor.
In favor. Congratulations, councillors. A question, Councillor Kent?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have one, I'm curious about the process here because this would be the first time that from the list that we're looking at and the documentation we have in front of us that we had would have had a consideration of a whole bunch of names that potentially could have been put forward for a nomination. And I'm good with that one for the library board. But as we come up to a couple of others, what is the process? Is it such that, let's say, for example, Councillor Blackburn put the motion on for the library with 2 people. Had there been 2 others or another that would have been interested, would that be a case where I would either nominate myself or someone would nominate me and then and someone else might nominate someone else? There might be 3 or 4 or 5. What's the process should that happen? So we can know going forward, because I know there's some that it might get to that.
Yeah, so Phoebe can explain that, but we have a Survey Monkey or Survey Donkey or something like that that we need if we need a vote, but there is the potential for a vote if there's more people interested than can be accommodated. Phoebe, do you want to speak to that?
That is correct, Mr. Mayor. Couldn't have said it better myself. If there are more councillors nominated than there are vacancies available, then I have a Survey Monkey form prepared, and I'll put that link in the chat, and councillors can vote. That is basically our solution for a secret ballot that would typically be done if we were in person. We've discussed with Access and Privacy and ICT, and there's no concerns in terms of the Survey Monkey results will be anonymous, so it will be a true secret ballot. If there is more than the number of vacancies, more councillors than vacancies, then we can do a secret ballot by way of Survey Monkey.
I have a question on that one, Mr. Mayor. So should that happen, would there be an opportunity, or would it normally be afforded to whoever wants to be considered to sort of rationalize anything of what brings them to that table, or is it just I don't know. I don't know. Wouldn't want it to be popularity, but many of us are not necessarily familiar with the strengths that you might want to bring to the table or that particular committee or commission. So would that be incorporated in the process as well? Just so we know, should we come to a vote, why we would be voting for someone over another.
Yeah, I mean, I would leave that to the discretion of mayor and council.
I would say that if there are more nominations than there are positions and people wanted to speak to their interest, I wouldn't have a problem with that.
Okay, what's been done in the past? Has that been the basic way that it's been done, or is it just you all would have known each other for longer when it was up before, right?
Yeah, I don't think we've had a lot of it before. It's easier when you're sitting around a table and can look at each other, frankly, than it is online. And but we've never had so many new members who may want to make a case as to why they're interested in the board. So I can't remember what we've done in the past, but that's what we would do today.
Mr. Mayor, it's Councillor Austin, just if I may. I recall in 2016, we actually did have a vote for the library board appointment. And as I recall, the three candidates all just like spoke for like just a minute saying why they wanted to be on it.
That's correct.
Okay. All right, Phoebe, what's the best way to go through these? Should we follow do we need to follow what's in the report, or what's the best way to go through all these reports, all these committees?
Yeah, I mean, if councillors aren't interested in bringing forward any particular committee, we can just go through them in order that they've been presented in the report.
Shall we do that, colleagues? So if you look at the report, starting with Alderley Landing, right? Councillor Austin, I think everybody's fine with some of those appointments.
Mr. Mayor, if I might. So the first attachment speaks to committees with sufficient vacancies to accommodate each councillor. So with respect to Alderney Landing, Canada Game Centre, Chain of Lakes Trail, Cole Harbour Place, Community Monitoring Committee, Halifax Forum Community Association, Shubenacadie Canal, and the Zatzman Sportsplex, if there are no additional expressions of interest from the floor, this can just be passed as the recommended action laid out. So for example, Alderney Landing, council may appoint up to 2 members, councillors or citizens. Councillor Austin is the only councillor who indicated an interest in serving on that board. So if council wishes, just in passing the motion that was provided with the staff report, would include just appointing the Councillor Austin to that committee. And so forth with the other committees as well. So if there is maybe give an opportunity for members of council to declare an interest on the floor that they maybe hadn't already declared, and if none, then council is free to, if they like, just that can be approved with the overall motion.
Thank you, Councillor Lovelace. Councillor Lovelace. I can't hear you. I don't know if that's just me.
Thank you. I would like to make a comment about the Community Monitoring Committee. In the past, District 13 has had representation on that committee, along with District 11 and 12 as ex officio. So I'm just wondering whether or not there's an opportunity for District 13 to remain on that committee with my fellow councillors.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, through you to the councillor. There is an ability for the Community Monitoring Committee for there to be the appointment of 1 councillor at large, in addition to the District 11 and District 12 ex officio appointments. So Councillor Cuddle and Councillor Stoddard, by virtue of their office representing Districts 11 and 12 respectively, they are already appointed as councillors. But if Councillor Lovelace is interested in continuing that representation, as she noted for Councillor for District 13 being the 3rd councillor on that committee, that would certainly be in order.
Thank you so much. Yes, I'd appreciate that.
So moved.
Moved by Councillor Hensby, seconded by Councillor Mason.
Wonderful, thank you.
Any other nominations? So Phoebe, then we can look at the first page and move those all at once, or do we have to move them at all, or can we just move on to the other pages?
If there's no further expressions of interest from the floor, I think you're okay to move forward. We have part of the original motion that was read into the record speaks to appointing the councillors that are outlined in attachment 1. Okay. So just as a, maybe as a friendly amendment, add Councillor Lovelace to that slate, and that can be approved when the motion as a whole is put forward to council.
So Councillor Lovelace is added. Councillor Mason.
Oh, no, Phoebe just said what I was going to say. I mean, when you look down the list, if I'm reading it correctly, we could have a councillor at large in Alderney Landing if anybody wants to go, and in addition to Councillor Austin, and we just did Community Monitoring Committee, and I think that's Phoebe, am I reading it right? That's the only other one that could be appointed at this point if we just leave the slate that you recommended?
That's correct. Those are the only boards where there's more than one counselor. The only opportunity with the other, like Canada Game Center, for example, there's up to one counselor at large. Counselor Morris is the one that expressed interest. Somebody else could also express interest in a contest for that, but no, aside from that, you're correct. Yes.
So if someone from Harbour East wants to go and back up Sam at Alderney, that might be nice. But other than that, I think we can move on.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. So just so for those who are following at home, the appointments for Alderney Landing are Councillor Austin, for the Canada Game Centre, Councillor Morse, Chain of Lakes Trail, Councillors Cleary and Morse, Cole Harbour Place, Councillor Purdy, Community Monitoring will be Councillor Cuddle and Stoddard by virtue of their district, and Councillor Lovelace. Halifax Forum will be Councillor Smith. Shubenacadie Canal Commission will be Councillors Mancini and Austin, and the Zatzman Sportsplex will be Councillor Austin, which I think brings Councillor Austin's committees to an even 50 so far. Everybody, I'm going to move on. Oh, Councillor Mancini on this page?
Yes, please. So, Mr. Mayor, I think as suggested by Councillor Mason, it may be worthwhile to back up Councillor Austin on Alderney Landing, since our districts are intertwined in many ways, including Alderney Landing. So I'll be happy to assist in any way of value. I hope it is of some value.
Second that nomination.
Moved by Councillor Mancini, seconded by Councillor Mason. Councillor Mancini joined the Alderney Landing. Okay, so that's done. So attachment 2, appeals is already done. Appeals is done. Audit and finance is done. Community planning and economic development is done. Environment and sustainability is done. Transportation is done. Board of Police Commissioners, I believe we did, correct?
No.
Board of Police Commissioners.
Mr. Mayor, did we have to vote on that last attachment 1?
No, it's all part of the recommendation.
Okay.
That's what I heard, Phoebe, right?
Yeah, so in effect, council will be voting on it at the end when they deal with the motion as a whole.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Mr. Mayor, I'd like to put forth some nominations for the Board of Police Commissioners. It's Lisa.
Go ahead, Deputy.
All right. I would like to nominate Councillor Smith and myself. Were already there. I just started in November of last year, and I think Councillor Smith just started a couple of months prior to that. And would also like to nominate Councillor Becky Kent for the Board of Police Commissioners. Councillor Kent comes with a very unique situation in that her district is, it sort of straddles the line. They have some service from HRP and some from RCMP, so she could bring a unique perspective to that table. Thank you.
Thank you.
Second the motion.
Seconded by Councillor Mason. Any other nominations? Then that would be the 3. Do we need to vote on that one, Phoebe?
Mr. Mayor, if I would suggest that just for these positions, we've been going through and doing votes individually for like the library, for NSFM. We could continue doing that, or as I said, we could just do it at the end.
If there's no other nominations and there's 3 spots, then is everybody okay if we accept those 3 names? As long as we're not breaking any rules, Phoebe, I'll accept those 3 names. Okay. All right. Discover Halifax Board of Directors. So there's 2 names that look like are interested. So do we need to have nominations, Phoebe, and choose one? Councillor, there are 2 names on my list.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. So for the Discover Halifax Board, we have 5 councillors who have expressed interest. That would be Councillors Blackburn, Cuddle, Mancini, Morris, and Lovelace.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, Councillor Mason,
Okay.
I guess part of the question as we move through this list is how many do you want to be on, everybody? Like Lisa, you just got back on the police board. Do you want to be on this too?
Yeah, I am willing to take my name off This one, if Councillor Cuddle, I see that Councillor Cuddle had it listed as first or second choice, and I've been with the board of Discover Halifax for my entire time on council, and you're gonna love it, Patty. It's a great bunch of folks. So I would, yeah, I will step aside if Councillor Cuddle wants to take the lead on Discover Halifax.
Councillor Cuddle?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd be happy to take the lead on Discover Halifax. I've been working with them for the past 6 years, very familiar with a lot of the things they're doing, as well as, you know, the situation with tourism overall for Halifax right now. So I would be glad to accept that nomination.
Just that people know that that's also a board that I sit on as mayor, and would probably continue to sit on. The way that's been done, Phoebe, is that's the mayor and/or a designate, as I remember, and I've been on that board. So Councillor Cuddle is the only name. Are there any other names for Discover Halifax? If not, Councillor Cuddle will be the representative on Discover Halifax. Halifax Harbor Bridges Board of Commissioners, we appoint 2, and there's a number of people interested. Councillor
Mr. Mayor,
Mason?
if I may, I'd move Councillor Hensby and Councillor Austin be appointed to the Halifax Harbor Bridges Board.
I'll second that. Councillor Russell.
Councillor Hensby and Councillor Austin. Councillor Hensby, you've been on that board since before there was bridges, I think, haven't you?
He stayed until there's 3 bridges too.
Built them himself.
And I hope to be when there's a 3rd and 4th bridge too.
I've heard that before, yeah. So Councillor Hensby and Austin have been put forward.
Is there a seconder? I'll second it if not.
Who was that?
That's Becky. I don't know.
Councillor Kent? Thank you.
I think Councillor Russell seconded.
Okay.
Oh, Councillor Russell, yes, okay. There was a 3rd name here, but 2 have been put forward.
Yeah, I'd be interested in taking that one to a vote if we could, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. So Councillor Smith is interested in the Board of Bridge Commissioners. Is there a second for that?
In the interest of sportsmanship, Mr. Mayor, I'll second it. Councillor Austin.
Councillor Austin. So there are 3 names put forward for the Halifax Harbor Bridges. That's Councillors Hensby, Austin, and Smith. Any other names? All right, Phoebe, let's get that monkey parts thing or whatever you're doing we're gonna have to have a vote.
Well, aren't we supposed to have a 2-minute spiel for our nominations?
Yeah, if you would like to. None of you are that new, but that's fine. Councillor.
You, David.
There's 3
1
names.
minute. 1 minute only.
1 minute, beginning with Councillor Hensby.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. And yes, I do have a tender with the Bridge Commission. I enjoyed it from the very beginning. I'm also there when they need a quorum, and I've always attended. I've a stellar attendance with the Bridge Commission. I've been there through a lot of many renovations and innovations, and I'm looking forward towards the other things such as AET and finishing the bike lane. And I'm looking forward to a new McKay Bridge.
Thank you, Councillor Hensby. Councillor Austin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, colleagues. So the Bridge Commission isn't one that I've had the chance to serve on in my previous term. It's a body that I have an interest in. It has a great deal of impact on my district, and there's a bunch of significant projects coming up in terms of the AT connection that comes off the McDonald and how that relates to my district, how the possibility of going tollless or getting rid of going electronic with the tolls and how that impacts the intersection at Wise and Nantucket. So there's a fair bit of play in my district involving the Bridge Commission, and I'd like a chance to have some input there. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Do I get to run a smear campaign on either of the candidates? You
do indeed, yes.
All right, so everyone vote for me. I can't be mean. I tried and it just didn't work. I chickened out at the last second. So I sit on the Bridge Commission now. I've been on it for about 7 months now, in understanding that represent between the bridges on the Halifax side. Lots of infrastructure and work being done, as Councillor Austin mentioned, the bike project or the toll project and many others. I enjoy it and hope that I could continue that tenure on the commission.
Okay, folks. Those are the 3 names. Phoebe, take us where you need to take us and tell us what to do when we get there.
Absolutely, Mr. Mayor. So, so for councillors, I have posted a link in the chat. So it says councillor appointment Halifax Harbour Bridges, and there is a SurveyMonkey link. If you click on that, it'll bring you to a page that will ask you to appoint 2 councillors at large. You'll notice that I've populated it all with every councillor's name because I wasn't sure who might come forward. So just sift through there, and you'll want to pick 2 councillors out of the available options of Councillor Hensby, Councillor Austin, and Councillor Smith. So you just in your checklist there, just go through and pick the 2 councillors that you wish to appoint to the Bridges Board of Commissioners, and then hit your done button at the bottom of the page, and I will see the results shortly.
Okay, just tell me that again, Phoebe. What are we doing?
Yeah, so if you look to the chat, there should be a link visible in your chat that'll take you to a SurveyMonkey link.
Okay.
And then if you click on that link that's in the chat, it should pop up in your browser window. And the title of the page in your browser window should be Councillor Appointment to Halifax Harbour Bridges Board of Commissioners. And it'll direct you to please appoint 2 councillors, and you can make your selection of Councillor Hensby, Austin, and Smith. So any 2 out of those 3.
And how do I get back to the meeting?
Then you should be able to just click back on Teams and be back in the meeting. It should have opened a separate window for you, so you can just minimize that window.
What happens if the 3rd one doesn't concede?
The 3rd one can ask for a recount, but it's electronic only, so.
So what a Supreme Court challenge.
Okay, I believe I've received all responses because Councillor Cleary is not in the meeting. I have 16 responses. And so I can confirm that the top recipients of the vote are Councillors Austin and Smith.
Okay. Councillors Austin and Smith. Councillor Hensby, unless you want to engage Rudy Giuliani to help you fight the recount.
It's been an honor to be on the Bridge Commission. I believe I was about to set the record of the longest serving commissioner there, and I'd like to have done that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that takes us to the Halifax Partnership. We can appoint up to 2 councillors.
Mr. Mayor, it's Lisa. I would like to nominate Paul Russell for Halifax Partnership.
Second for that?
Seconded.
Tim, I'll
Councillor
second.
Mason. And Mr. Mayor, if I may, I want to gauge the interest before I nominate myself of the other councillors who are on the list. Most of you have been appointed to other things, and I suspect several of you are going to get appointed to the Water Commission in a minute, which I, for some reason, showed up on the list as my most interested thing. And no offense to Kathy and her team, they're great. I have no interest in that at all. So with Councillor Cleary leaving the partnership, and both of us having just joined 2 years ago and having been really involved in COVID, I would like to stay on that board if that's the will of council.
I'd second that nomination, Councillor Cleary.
Seconded by Councillor Cleary. So Councillor Russell and Councillor Mason. I'll let people know that both myself and the CAO are ex officio members of the partnership. Councillor Russell and Councillor Mason.
Happy to withdraw if someone passionately wants it, though, because I'm not going to fight it in a SurveyMonkey.
Is there anybody out there with passion? Going once, going twice. Congratulations, Councillor Russell and Councillor Mason. You are now members of the most dynamic economic development agency in Canada and one of the most in the world, the Halifax Partnership. Halifax Regional Library Board, I believe we have done. Correct? We've done the library. Halifax Water Board of Commissioners. We have a number of people who've expressed an interest, and I will allow people to indicate that. Councillor, somebody has asked if they can refuse a nomination. You can. Okay, the Water Board.
I would like to make a nomination, Mr. Mayor. It's Lisa. I'd like to nominate Councillor Pamela Lovelace for Halifax Water.
All right. Second for Councillor Lovelace.
Councillor Cleary would second.
Seconded by Councillor Cleary.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to nominate Becky Kent for the Water Commission.
Councillor
Seconded by Mancini.
Councillor Kent has been seconded, nominated and seconded. Other nominations?
Yeah, I would like to, hello, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to nominate myself for the Water Board, please.
I would second that.
Seconded, Councillor Mason.
Councillor Cuttle has been nominated and seconded.
Just, Mr. Mayor, it's Councillor Cleary. I wonder if we could stop referring to it as the Water Board. It sounds like torture.
I was laughing every time. It's awful.
Oh my. All right. Any other nominations to the Board of Halifax Water?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to nominate Councillor Paul Russell as well, please.
Councillor Russell, seconded by Councillor Russell at least.
Certainly.
Other nominations? Any other nominations to the Halifax Water Commissioners Board? Speak now or forever hold your water. So right now we have 4 people who are nominated: Councillor Lovelace, Cuttle, Russell, and Kent. We're looking for 3. So if there are no other names being put forward. All right, bring back the monkey, I guess, Phoebe.
So, Mr. Mayor, just on this appointment, just wanted to bring a point of clarification on this. There is going to be a total of 4 appointments altogether. One of those does come from the Environment and Sustainability Standing Committee. So for those members of council who are not appointed at today's meeting, there is still another opportunity through that standing committee that will be available. As well, a couple of items that that Kathy O'Toole of the Halifax Water Board just raised for council's consideration would be to potentially have 2 of the terms be 3-year terms and the other 2 be 2-year terms to ensure that terms are staggered a little bit. As well as where Councillor Hensby is currently a member of the board, there is interest in having him stay until the end of November when there's going to be a final meeting. That would be useful to have his continuity on. They've asked for consideration that Councillor Hensby remain on the board until the end of November.
Okay, and so the representative from the standing committee would take Councillor Hensby's place, Phoebe?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so how do we decide who gets the staggered terms?
So, Mr. Mayor, in the SurveyMonkey link, which I'm about to paste in the chat, just 1 second here, I've indicated 2 separate votes, one for the longer terms and one for the shorter term. I'm just gonna, copy and paste here, multitasking. So this is, the link is now in your chat. So that's the Halifax Water Board of Commissioners. And when you open that link, that should come up. The first question is to appoint 2 councillors at large to a 3-year term. So that would be the first vote. And then the second vote, you'll hit next and it'll give you an opportunity to vote for a 3rd councillor for a 2-year term.
Okay, so folks, just to remind you again, it's Councillor Lovelace, Cuttle, Russell, and Kent are the 4 that are interested.
That's right. And Mr. Mayor, just to let council know, I have put all of the councillors' names in the SurveyMonkey just because I wasn't sure, what nominations may arise from the floor. So you would just be selecting, as the mayor just stated, between Councillors Lovelace, Kent, Cuttle, and Russell. So first would be 2 appointments to 3-year terms, And then on the next page, you'll see one councillor for a 2-year term.
Wait. Two councillors.
So I'm just, I believe, waiting for one more councillor just to hit done. If you're finished, there should be a done button at the bottom of the screen. Okay, Mr. Mayor, I have the results. So we have, for the first question, to appoint 2 councillors at large to a 3-year term. We have the most number of votes going to Councillor Lovelace and Councillor Cuddle. So that would be Councillor Lovelace and Councillor Cuddle appointed for a 3-year term. And then for the 1-year term, or sorry, for the 1 councillor appointed for the 2-year term, that will be Councillor Kent.
Okay. So Councillor Lovelace and Cuddle for 3-year terms, Councillor Kent for a 2-year term. These are appointments that would normally have been made by executive committee, which were devolved to council, and 1 more will be appointed by the standing committee. All right, Phoebe, is there anything else? Is that all the boards and commissions?
I believe it is, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
All for now. There will be additional councillor appointments coming forward from the standing committees, but for today, I believe that's all we have in front of council.
Question on the main motion.
So the main motion, colleagues, is to appoint, to ratify, to vote on all of these appointments as indicated. The standing committees, the ones where there was no votes, and those that there was votes. And we chose candidates. Ready for the questions? Phoebe.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I believe I'm starting with Councillor Cuddle this time. Councillor Cuddle?
The motion?
On the whole motion.
Oh, on the whole motion. Sorry, can you, I was lost on my computer screen here. Can you please give me the direction again?
Not a problem. So the motion is on the floor as put forward by Councillor Mason, seconded by Councillor Blackburn, to appoint the councillors to the board, committees and commissions for a term to November 22 as outlined in attachment 1, as discussed by regional council, and as well the successful candidates after the vote by secret ballot, as well as the councillors to the Halifax Water Board for their 3-year term. So this would be the vote for everything all encompassing of the amendments that have been made.
Okay, and I'm sorry, and what am I to be approving right now?
So we're approving
the full slate.
The full slate. So I'm saying I approve the motion for the full slate?
Yeah.
Well, I guess I want some new blood there. They voted for Sam.
David, you're on. David, we can hear you, buddy.
Councillor Cuddle, this is to approve all of the boards and committees that we've discussed. So those where there was no competition, those where there was votes, the standing committees as put forward by the community councils. This is for all of those.
Correct. So I'm
In favor or not in
I'm
favor?
in favor. No, I'm
Yeah.
in favor.
Yeah.
Yes.
You're leading the charge on this one.
Okay,
Thank you.
I'm in favor.
Thank you. Councillor Stoddart,
I'm in favor of the motion.
Councillor Lovelace,
Voting yes for the motion.
Deputy Mayor Blackburn,
Voting yes on the motion.
Councillor Russell,
In favor?
Councillor Outwood,
Yes.
Councillor Daigle Gammon,
Voting in favor of the motion.
Councillor Hensby, Councillor Hensby,
Affirmative.
Councillor Kent,
In favor?
Councillor Purdy,
In favor.
Councillor Austin,
In favor.
Councillor Mancini,
In favor of the motion.
Councillor Mason,
For the motion.
Councillor Smith,
For?
Councillor Cleary, Councillor Cleary,
Can you hear me?
I can hear you,
Yep.
Councillor.
Okay, yes,
In favor of the motion,
yes.
Councillor Morris
In favor.
and Mayor Savage.
In favor, and congratulations to everybody who's been appointed to some exciting committees. And some that aren't as exciting, but best wishes. Colleagues, we're going to move to 11.1.8. This is the Rapid Housing Initiative Agreement. For those following at home, this is not to choose the successful applicants. It is simply to start the process to allow us to have a special meeting next week. Do we have somebody from staff just to speak very briefly to this, Jacques?
Mr. Mayor, it's Kelly Denty. I can speak to it. Can everyone hear me?
We can hear you, Kelly. The floor is yours. Kelly Denty, Director of Planning and everything else.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, just very briefly, just to give you some context for this report. So this report is simply to give the mayor, give the mayor and the CAO approval to execute the rapid housing agreement with the federal government so the transfer of funds can flow into our account. And next week is when we really get back to you to talk about which projects are going to be funded. So we're still working with submitters to determine which projects actually meet the criteria, which ones, actually kind of fit the bill in terms of what that fund is trying to achieve. So this was simply a request by CMHC to ask that the funding be put in our account to take care of administrative pieces up front, so we don't have to try and do the awards as well as figure out how the mechanics of depositing the funds into Atrium's account. So this is simply, yes, we can put the money into our account, and next week we can have a discussion on the individual projects. So hopefully that's helpful to give you the context for what this report is about.
Thank you, Kelly.
You're welcome.
Deputy Mayor?
Thank you. I'll put the motion on the floor that Halifax Regional Council direct the Chief Administrative Officer to enter into the Rapid Housing Initiative Agreement with Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation, otherwise known as CMHC, as provided in Attachment A of the staff report dated November 11th, 2020, to accept $8,659,527 for the creation of a minimum of 28 affordable housing units. I so move.
Second by Mancini.
Second.
Seconded by Councillor Cuddle Mason Mancini. Deputy Mayor, anything on it?
Excellent. No, I think as both you and Kelly Denty have pointed out, we are just voting today to accept the money. We'll get down into the specifics of which groups we'd like to see awarded the grants next week at the meeting on the 24th. Thanks.
Thank you. Any questions, Councillor Hensby?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I put a note in the chat there in regards to that list of surplus properties we were given last week and stuff. There's some gross errors in that list in regards to why we given road right-of-ways away. And one of them is a school property. I got Bell Park Academic School and soccer field on that list. And, I find it a little odd. The only thing that's surplus there is a little walkway that's been occupied by a neighbor. So that list was circulated. I think we need to go through that with a fine-tooth comb to make sure they're actually building lots and not road reserves and other things such as that.
Okay. Thank you. Nobody else? Let's go to the question, Phoebe.
Councillor Stoddard. Councillor Stoddard? I'll come back to Councillor Stoddard. Councillor Lovelace?
In favor of the motion.
In favor. Deputy Mayor Blackburn?
Voting yes on the motion.
Councillor Russell?
In favor?
Councillor Outset?
Voting yes.
Councillor Daigle Gammon?
Voting in favor of the motion.
Councillor Hensby?
Affirmative.
Councillor Kent?
In favor?
Councillor Purdy?
In favor.
Councillor Austin?
In favor.
Councillor Hanson?
In favor of the motion.
Councillor Mason?
In favor.
Councillor Smith?
For.
Councillor Cleary?
8.7 million yeses.
Councillor Morris?
In favor of the motion.
Councillor Cuddle?
In favor.
And Councillor Stoddard?
In favor of the motion.
Mr. Mayor.
In favor of the motion, that motion passes. I want to thank Kelly and her team who are working very hard on this. And as council knows and others may not know, we're having a special meeting of council next Tuesday to deal with this issue, which is very important. So thank you, colleagues. Let's keep going for the time being. 11.2.1 is Community Planning and Economic Development Standing Committee. 11.2.1, who's taking us on this?
If it's
Councillor.
okay with Councillor Smith, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to take it.
Cool. I'll second.
Okay, Councillor Austin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I would move that Halifax Regional Council, 1, direct the Chief Administrative Officer to prioritize the adoption of new heritage conservation districts in the following order. 1, downtown Dartmouth, 2, Old North Suburb, and 3, Creighton's Field, and 2, repeal the existing public participation program for heritage conservation districts, HCDs, as contained in attachment E of the staff report dated August 19th, 2020, and adopt a revised public participation program for HCDs as contained in attachment F of the staff report dated August 19th, 2020.
Seconded by Councillor Smith. Councillor Austin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Smith, for letting me move this one. As chair, he'd normally get dibs, but it is the number one recommendation is downtown Dartmouth. I'm the representative, one of the representatives on the Heritage Advisory Committee, so I appreciate that. Thank you. The report is pretty self-explanatory. We've been kicking around a little bit now for a while now as to what next heritage districts identified in the central plan would be that we work on. We have to get the downtown one done because there's some need there and development pressures, but the next one in the mix would be crossing the harbor for Dartmouth's first heritage district. The one thing that I will emphasize, and I know we have ongoing discussions on this, is resourcing of our planning department to actually deliver on these. Because beyond these 3, we have several more districts also identified. And unless we can shorten up our timeline, basically we'll be doing heritage districts for the next 20, 30 years. And that's a heck of a lot of time to wait for some of the ones that are further down the list. So as we come into the budget cycle, over the next few years, one thing I think we're going to have to keep in mind is if we actually want to be serious about this, as Key Smith recommended in her review of our center plan, and I agree wholeheartedly with her, if we want to be serious about heritage, it's going to require the resources to actually deliver on the work. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Anybody else on this? If not, we'll go to the question, Phoebe.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes?
I would just like to say that I know a lot of work has been done by community organizations to help advance these heritage conservation districts, and I just want to recognize those groups and thank you for all their hard work as well.
Thank you. Indeed. Anybody else? Phoebe?
Councillor Lovelace,
In favor?
Deputy Mayor Blackburn,
Voting yes on the motion.
Councillor Russell,
In favor?
Councillor Outfit,
In favor, thank you.
Councillor Daigle Gammon,
Voting in favor of the motion.
Councillor Hensby,
Affirmative.
Councillor Kent,
In favor.
Councillor Purdy,
In favor?
Councillor Austin,
In favor?
Councillor Mancini,
In favor of the motion.
Councillor Mason,
In favor.
Councillor Smith,
In favor?
Councillor Cleary,
Yes.
Councillor Morris,
In favor.
Councillor Cuddle,
In favor?
Councillor Stoddard,
In favor.
Mayor Savage,
In favor? Thank you, colleagues. That passes. Thank you, Councillor Austin. I believe the next three items have passed on consent. Design Review Committee improvements to downtown Halifax substantive site plan approval and appeal process. 11.4.1 from Heritage Advisory, substantial alteration to a municipally registered property, 524147 South Street. And 11.4.2, application for a substantial alteration to 1029 Tower Road, also a registered municipal heritage property. Those three have passed on consent. Correct, Phoebe?
yes, Mr. Mayor, that is correct.
So I think what we'll do, colleagues, is we'll take a little break here and we'll come back at 3:15 Atlantic time in just almost 20 minutes. Everybody okay? We'll see you at 3:15 and we'll resume our meeting. Thank you. April, are you there? Hello?
Hello?
Anybody out there?
Hello, yeah. All right, April, do we have April or Phoebe, do we have our counselors?
Mr. Mayor, April seems to be experiencing a little bit of technical difficulties. Just, sorry, bear with me 1 second here. I just got to confirm with April.
Sure.
I believe we are missing counselors. We have our solicitor in the meeting. I believe we're missing John and Councillor.
Okay, we'll wait a sec.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, I believe we are ready to go when you are.
Okay. We have our lawyer, Mr. Traves.
You do, Mayor?
That's great. It's like having a campaign without an official agent. All right, let's giddy up then, Phoebe or April. Is April back with us, or is she still having trouble?
I believe April is with us. She's just having trouble with her microphone, but
okay.
We're good to send you live.
Sure. Okay, we're back. Welcome back, folks. So we're going to move on our agenda to items coming from members of council, beginning at 11.5.1, Councillor Austin. Use of the term Micmac on municipal streets and facilities. Councillor Austin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that Regional Council request a staff report on renaming Micmac Boulevard, the Micmac Transit Terminal, and Micmac Drive in Dartmouth, the Micmac Street and Micmac Court in Halifax. The report should consider, 1, whether the east-west portion of Micmac Boulevard from the current intersection of Glen Manor Drive should become part of Glen Manor to better fit Atrium's current policies for street names. 2, a new commemorative name for the portion of Micmac Boulevard that extends from the intersection of Glen Manor to the intersection of Lancaster Boulevard that reflects the former Black community that previously existed in the area for approximately 200 years. 3, whether the Micmac Transit Terminal should be given the same commemorative name as Micmac Boulevard or a new one of its own. 4, new or corrected names for Micmac Street, Micmac Court, and Micmac Drive.
Second by Mancini.
Seconded by Councillor Mancini. Councillor Austin, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Mancini and colleagues. So this motion, it really comes out of the work of the Cornwallis Task Force. If you recall recommendations 13 and 14, they talk about adding new diversity into street names and taking a look at our existing names, particularly ones that have been anglicized. And the task force, they identified Shabaka Road as an example. when this came forward, I was a little surprised that Micmac Boulevard, some of these weren't included, but even though they weren't specifically mentioned, this is clearly the sort of thing that the task force was contemplating. So while the task force, it creates the current framework, the use of Micmac on everything, it has been a question that has been simmering in Dartmouth for some time. It seems to come up every couple of years, and it's something that I think it's high time that we take a look at. From what I understand, Micmac is an anglicized version of Mi'kmaq. And from what I understand, it's not necessarily a slur, but it's not the proper pronunciation of their name. And it's something that's increasingly seen as very antiquated, very colonial, and just very outdated. As a matter of respect, I would think that it would be, it's incumbent on us to actually use the proper name. This isn't the same as, to me, as anglicizing some other names. We received an email this morning about European capitals, and I think you have to consider this within the historical context of Canada. We have major unfinished business for our First Nations, and if truth and reconciliation is going to mean anything, as a bare minimum, we should be using the right names. I think you have to consider as well how Micmac came to be applied to everything in Dartmouth. It seems to have all come about because of the lake. The lake, Lake Micmac didn't get its name until the 1920s, and that was the result of a contest. Before then, it was Second Lake. And Lake Micmac was the winning contest entry, and the article in the newspaper of the day said it was because of the lake's historical importance as a Mi'kmaq canoe route across the province. I think the emphasis here is on the historical. This, to me, wasn't named to honor the Mi'kmaq because that was an era when the Canadian government we weren't doing any honoring. We were in full assimilation mode when it came to First Nations cultures across the country. You weren't allowed to vote. There was residential schools. It was not an era of honoring First Nations culture. This was more, to me, the naming coming about from a romantic attachment to what was regarded increasingly as the Spanish past more than anything else. In the area of this area of Dartmouth, we also have the history of the Black community, the Avenue, where Micmac Boulevard sits today, which is another history that's being marginalized and largely forgotten, encapsulating some of the worst treatment that our Black community has faced in the province. Lack of city services, environmental racism. And so I think there could be an opportunity there to introduce some commemoration of that. So what's before us is an opportunity to possibly just correct the spelling of Micmac to Mi'kmaq, or there's possibly a chance to really honor the First Nations by bringing back some of the names that they actually use to describe these places in our municipality. I'm not sure what the exact outcome of all this will be. I think this is an initiation of a process. It's time to really look at this issue and start to have some of these discussions and see where it goes. So with that, Mr. Mayor, I would encourage council to support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Mancini.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Austin, for putting this motion on the floor. You know, I want to share a quick little story with you. I had a family move into my district from Councillor Austin's district, and they were very happy to move into District 6. Especially since they were leaving District 5. That's another. So they're very happy to move in, and I shared an email that they sent to me and Sam earlier to all my colleagues, and they're twin girls, Rory and George, are 10 years old, and when they were excited to move to their new home, they looked at the street name and said to their mom, "Mom, that name is not the right name. It's not pronounced. The way people are pronouncing it, the way they spell it, is incorrect." Isn't that offensive to the Mi'kmaq people? So Rory and George, they get it. And so when we look at what's going on around the world, you look at, we have names here in, Mi'kmaq Amateur Aquatics Club. That's private. However, I do challenge the fact that, that logo really may not be appropriate for this day and age. Micmac Mall, Micmac Tavern, these are iconic in Dartmouth, but they're all private. Like Micmac, as Councillor Austin mentioned, and that change of that name would have to come from the province, if any at all. But look around the world, they look at professional sporting teams. The Edmonton Eskimos are no longer the Edmonton Eskimos. They're the Edmonton football team, the Washington Redskins, the NFL, the Washington football team. Next on the list is the Cleveland Indians in Major League Baseball. They're looking at changing the name. We're in a different time right now. The values of today are truly different. I don't know where this goes. I support the motion, but I hope staff come back, and I hope there's an opportunity to engage the streets that we're looking to rename. And I don't know if it's appropriate, but do they actually even, if there's options put in front of them, there's an actual vote that takes place. I think the conversation is healthy. I think we need to carry on with this conversation. So I support Councillor Austin's motion, and I ask all of my colleagues to support it also. Once again, Rory and Georgia get it, so the rest of us should get it also. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Lovelace.
Thank you. Take two. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. So I too support this motion. I actually received a really lovely email from a constituent who is grateful that we're having this conversation and hopes that we can also include Micmac Drive and Micmac Park and Hammonds Plains. So in Hammonds Plains, we're home to many First Nations families, both from Acadia First Nation and also Spaganagadig. And so, in spirit of this motion, Councillor Austin, I would like to add an amendment that would include, the new or corrected names for Micmac Drive and Micmac Park, which is an HRM park here in Hammonds Plains.
I'll second that amendment.
Wonderful, thank you. And I do just want to say that, in this realization and understanding of truth and reconciliation and the hope for peace and friendship, we have a wonderful opportunity here to have the conversation. And certainly, as Councillor Mancini, you have mentioned, we don't know where this will go, but I think it's wonderful that we are having this conversation, and look forward to receiving a recommendation from staff. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I'm just going to confirm with the mover that he's okay with that amendment. I think it's just a request for a staff report.
Yeah, I think it's friendly, Mr. Mayor. It was just an oversight on my part. I didn't realize there was a Micmac Drive in Hammonds Plains.
Okay. All right. So we'll accept that as a friendly amendment. Thank you, Councillor Lovelace.
Secretary's okay with that.
Thank you, Tony. Councillor Cleary.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I'm glad we're having this discussion, and thanks to Councillor Austin for reaching out to me earlier. In fact, that's how we got Micmac Street. If we had known there were others, that would have been great too. It's funny, I communicated with 3 residents for Micmac Street today, which is in District 9, just up by, just north of Bayers Road. 2 were very much in favor of the change. 1 was less in favor of the change, but I've also had interesting conversations with this person about bike lanes and about the turn restriction and other things too. And I think in the conversation we had by email back and forth, there was some education that could go a long way. And I think that's one of the great things about this. People are always talking about erasing history when it's statues, place names, team mascots. You can't erase history by changing a street name or taking down a statue. In fact, what we're doing is helping people understand history. And to Councillor Austin's point about, in the 1920s and 30s, this is likely any names that were given we're not honoring. And in fact, if anyone's ever read Thomas King's book, The Inconvenient Indian, they would sort of understand. And what he means by the way, the inconvenient Indian is the one that's actually alive today. The good Indian in his book was the one that was dead that you could honor, and you didn't have to worry about it because he was speaking from an American context. That was the past, and a very dead past. Today, though, in the sense of reconciliation and in that spirit of giving, and in fact, we are co-residents with the Indigenous communities here in Canada, especially in a place like Halifax here. And I know, Mr. Mayor, you speak eloquently and open pretty much every time I've ever heard you speak publicly with a land acknowledgement and talking about our peace and friendship treaties. And so I think in that spirit, we move forward in this same way. And we can look at a lot of other things too, but I think it's baby steps, one thing at a time. And I hope this encourages a dialogue with the members of the task force on Cornwallis and Indigenous recognition and commemoration, but importantly, Indigenous residents and groups within Halifax. And I understand, and I hope Gail McLean is on with us, but I have a question about our current process. Because right now, there's an application process for commemorative street names. And I looked at the list not that long ago. I didn't see a whole lot, and I didn't see a whole lot of official engagement with Indigenous communities here. So is it that we will encourage people to submit applications, or when the staff report comes back, will they be looking at changing a process or adding something to our civic addressing policies so that we can enter into that kind of dialogue with the Indigenous groups here? They may not want the street named in any way, shape, or form around anything to do with Mi'kma'ki, but they may. And so how do we go about that process, and is that going to be part of the staff report? And I know we don't normally have for these kind of things staff, but our current process doesn't actually allow for this kind of thing. So if maybe Councillor Austin has talked to our civic addressing staff, or if they're here, I'd love to see if we have an answer on that.
I'll leave that for Councillor Austin at the end if he wishes to wrap up. Councillor, I don't know that we have any staff with us on this.
No worries. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Thank you for that. Councillor Cuttle.
Thank you,
Oh,
Mr.
sorry.
Mayor.
Can I just interrupt you 1 second? I'm sorry. I do see a note from Gail McLean that she is here. Did you wish to, pardon me, Councillor, do you wish to speak on that, Gail?
Mr. Mayor, I am available to answer any questions, but I'll defer to Councillor Austin if you'd rather wait till the end.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that. We'll go back to Councillor Cuttle. Councillor Cuttle?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, just to follow up on some of the things that Councillor Cleary and Councillor Lovelace and Councillor Austin were saying around kind of the recognition of the Mi'kmaq. I have a story in that a couple of years ago there was a Maori elder here for the Art of City building, and after the conference was done, I took her for a drive around Halifax, and she asked me to take her to places that were of significance to the Mi'kmaq. And it was on my part, I felt quite shameful that there were very few places that either recognized the Mi'kmaq history in an authentic way, or that I could take her to that had some Mi'kmaq significance to them and kind of point to it and know that history. So having been to New Zealand decades ago now, I can't say they did an amazing job there of naming parks, of recognizing through the symbolism, whether it's in their street furniture to the names of their roads, a lot of the Maori culture. Like it's hard to forget when you're in New Zealand that you aren't in Maori land. And so when we talk about changing the word Mi'kmaq to something else, I just hope that we do that with some intention, whether it's through those streets or through some other places in our city where we can really strongly reflect an authentic culture of the Mi'kmaq, their history, their knowledge and understanding of this place and of this land. So I'm equally interested in that process, not just in terms of looking at replacing Mi'kmaq on these street and park names, but moving forward in general as a way of naming new streets, new parks, new buildings, new places in our city, and actually even creating new spaces. I think it's incredibly important, particularly for that education piece, not just through the dialogue that will happen through a renaming process, but to take that, all those steps further in helping us even learn more about, Halifax citizens learn more about the place that we call home, through that language and through that history. So I'm very much in support of this, and thank you for bringing it forward.
Thank you. Councillor Hensby.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I'm in favor of this moving forward. My question will hopefully be in the staff report in regards to implications to the residents and businesses living on any streets that are renamed. Will we be covering the cost of Canada Post change of address, because we are opposing something on a change of the residence and something that they should not have to incur a cost, so we should be covering that cost for them for a period of time. So it's not a change of address situation, it's more of a change of a street name. So I want to make sure that part of the report covers that. But to go even further, I would like to see some of our civic addressing projects address local community names. Like, for instance, I have quite a few community names in my particular area that are Mi'kmaq related, like Musquodoboit. I would like to see the actual, under our community civic signs, an actual native language of how Musquodoboit is spelt and pronounced, perhaps. I'd like to see perhaps our the band lands that we have in HRM. I know we have Sheet Harbor with a couple community areas. We have Beaver Dam, we have Cole Harbor, we have Hammonds Plains. I'd like to see the true Mi'kmaq name for those communities appear on a civic sign. So, you know, maybe like a twin name, you know, maybe known as Hammonds Plains for the general population, but what is it known by the local band land names and stuff? So I'd like to see that kind of connectivity to our community. So if there's a way that we can look at that down the road, because we talk about Shubenacadie and other places like that, there's a lot of anglicized names that came from the Mi'kmaq names for the area. So I'd like to see if there's a way that we could perhaps have them resemble this or symbolize somehow on our community civic signs.
Thank you, Councillor. That should be part of the report, I think, in light of that question. Councillor Mason.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, building on what Councillor Hensby was asking about, I think this report could be, oh, sorry, my computer froze up there. I think this report could be an opportunity for staff to start bringing back the recommendations that we approved with the Cornwallis Task Force report being endorsed. So there is wording in there about recognizing and in some cases changing anglicized names to the Mi'kmaq names, place names for both streets and communities. I think communities is going to require more of a discussion than streets. The other thing I'd like to see come back in this report, I support it 100%. I think that I'd like to thank Councillor Austin for bringing this forward, is a bit of unfinished business is officially changing the name of Cornwallis Park to Peace and Friendship Park. So we endorsed doing that, but we have not actually gone through that process yet. So it's not changed on GIS or Google Maps or any of that stuff. So I would ask staff to consider rolling that in there, because, you know, we voted to do it, but we need to actually have the motion to officially change the name. So thank you very much for this discussion today. It fills my heart to hear what people are saying. And thank you, Councillor Austin, for bringing this forward.
Thank you, Councillor Mason. You're right, we haven't, gone through all the process of changing that name, but I noticed that Paul McKinnon of the Downtown Halifax Business Commission has invited me to an event at Peace and Friendship Park, and I knew exactly what he meant, and I'm glad he used the term. Thank you, Paul. Yeah. Councillor Lovelace, second time.
No worries, my question's been answered. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Austin. Sorry, Councillor Austin, if I could, I kind of just wanted to say a word myself, if I could, before I come to you to wrap up. Very briefly, just to say that as somebody who grew up on Lake Micmac, and none of my friends or I really questioned that. That's how it was. And all of our consciousness has changed over the last number of years, and I think we have to acknowledge that. And I'm very proud that we've taken some of the steps that we have taken, and I see this, and it's a staff report at this point, but I think it will lead to a very important discussion. What I wanted to say, and you've all heard me say this because I probably said it at our swearing in, and I say it all the time. If anybody hasn't seen the Cornwallis report on the commemoration of names, which had its share of controversy, I would encourage people to look at that report. It is one of the most amazing things that I've seen in my time on council. And I want to once again thank Monica and Donald and Chief Rod Gugu, who were the co-chairs, who went through a lot to get that report done. And at the time I called it a seminal piece of work. And I think we're all should be very indebted to the people who did that work. So thank you for that. Councillor Austin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, colleagues, for your support on this. Just to try and speak a little bit to Councillor Cleary's question, I did talk about this one several times with Gail McLean, And there isn't an established process for this. I mean, it's something that they are looking at as their actions coming out of the Cornwallis Task Force as well. How do we begin to operationalize this as a municipality and start to deal with these big questions? In terms of Dartmouth, Micmac and Dartmouth is kind of it's the big one that's out there, that's outstanding. It's not just one small street. It's kind of ubiquitous in use in Dartmouth, from malls to lakes to aquatic clubs to dental practices to our street names, parks, transit terminals. It's kind of everywhere. So it's something that I think requires something more than just a kind of standard overview look. So that's really what I'm trying to achieve with this report. And this is going to be an ongoing thing, right? This will probably not be the last name discussion that comes before us. And we're going to have a bunch of them over the next couple of years coming out of the work that's underway. So it's my understanding some of that will be coming back to council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Daigle, oh, that's a comment? Yes, a good one too. Nobody else on this? I'll thank Gail for being here, and we'll go to the question.
Deputy Mayor Blackburn?
Voting yes on the motion.
Councillor Russell?
In favor?
Councillor Outlet?
Voting yes.
Councillor Daigle-Gammon?
Voting in favor of the motion.
Councillor Hensby?
Affirmative.
Councillor Kent?
In favor.
Councillor Purdy?
In favor.
Councillor Austin?
In favor.
Councillor Mancini?
In favor of the motion.
Councillor Mason? Councillor Mason?
In favor of the motion.
Councillor Smith?
For.
Councillor Cleary?
Yes.
Councillor Morris?
In favor.
Councillor Cuddle?
In favor of the motion.
Councillor Stoddard?
In favor of the motion.
Councillor Lovelace?
Voting yes.
Mayor Savage?
In favor of the motion. That motion carries. Thank you, Councillor Austin. Colleagues, we're going to go to motions at this point. Councillor Russell, buy local. Councillor Russell.
Thank you very much. I move that Halifax Regional Council request a staff report to update the procurement policy and options for a buy local provision.
Second it.
Thank you. The essence of this is that we are now in a pandemic. We have been limited to where we are able to go, to who we are able to visit. We have shut down all but essential travel. And we are still buying things from outside of Atlantic Canada and outside of the country. And I would simply, we have had reports over the past few years. There was a report that was brought to council back in 2014 that initiated this. And then it came again in 2017, effectively speaking to it and saying that we were under provincial and Atlantic guidelines that limited our capacity to look outside of Atlantic Canada for various items, which is great. But in this time of a pandemic, where so many of the rules have changed for us to be able to spend our money, we have lost the tourism sector. We have lost many other capabilities for money to come into the province. I don't want to see us continue to spend money outside of Atlantic Canada. And so I'm simply looking to see if there have been any other changes, if there are any other opportunities for there to be some sort of buy local provision, either within Nova Scotia or within Atlantic Canada. And that is the essence of what I'm looking for. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mason.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this might come as a surprise to many of the listeners at home and on council, but I'm not going to be supporting the motion. And the reason why is, as the councillor outlined, we have reports from March 2014 and we have another report from June 2017. And while there is a pandemic, the information that's in there wouldn't really have changed. We have the internal trade agreement with the other provinces, the Atlantic Procurement Framework. We have the Canadian-European Comprehensive Economic Trade Agreement that all bind us, right? There's just there's a maximum, if the motion was going to be brought forward in a different way that asked about whether or not we could have a local preference for goods up to 25,000 and services up to 50,000 and construction up to 100,000, which is what these reports say is all that's legally allowed. I think that would be a much better focus. But right now, even though I think I moved the motion with Councillor Smith to get the 2017 one, but we have that information, right? We know that we're legally bound by these federal and treaties and interprovincial treaties. So I think it's it could be a lot of work for staff for very little value. I think that a better considered motion would be to act on what the information that's in here and ask staff to come back with something that's allowed inside of the legal framework that binds us. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Cleary.
I could just say ditto, and I will, but also too, I believe not only is it not legally enforceable and not advisable, I mean, just think about it from if we said let's buy local and Moncton said let's buy local and Toronto said let's buy local and Montreal said let's buy local, that's a pretty parochial view of economics, and essentially it is protectionism, and it's never worked. We're a global economy, we're a national country, we trade with each other, we're a federation, so it's not even good economics. But also, and this might, I'll ask maybe Councillor Russell to speak to this later, but essentially we'd be adding preferential and prejudicial language to our procurement policy. And I'm not sure how that conflicts with the councillor's philosophy on other kinds of actions that we take. So asking for a staff report when we already have two, Councillor Mason said this could be a lot of work for staff. It's probably not. You basically cut and paste from the other two and send it tomorrow and say, here's your report. It might be the fastest report that ever comes back to council. But in that vein, though, I don't see a point in asking for it a third time. I doubt a third time's the charm. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Mancini.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's on the same vein as the two previous speakers. I'm wondering if the solicitor could speak, and maybe we can save some work here for staff. We've talked about this before. I like the intent of Councillor Russell. I always thought that we should have the ability to put a weighting on buying local, at least give them some advantage points. But I understood, and when I asked that question in the past, we weren't allowed to do that legally. Wondering if John Traves could speak to that.
Mr. Traves, do you want to say what was in the report the last two times?
Mayor, thank you for the question. Members of council, there's nothing in the provincial state of emergency or in the Chief Medical Officer Health orders that has changed the state of affairs that has been laid out in the previous staff reports.
So I guess my question, John, so we have no legality to be able to do what's being asked here. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
We have a limited ability, as Councillor Mason has pointed out and is laid out in the reports.
Thank you, Councillor Hensby.
Well, Mr. Mayor and Council, I wouldn't mind seeing maybe an updated summary of what's allowable for our procurement practices. I recall a tender a number of years back. It came down to a $200 difference between the flag shop on Main Street in Dartmouth versus the flag distribution place in Moncton, New Brunswick. And the tender went to Moncton, New Brunswick, whereas the local proprietor employs local people, pays local taxes, and supports local sports teams. And for a $200 difference in the tender, it went to Moncton because it was the lowest tender. I think there should be some parameters for a local buy preference where possible. We're hearing it locally now with the so-called pandemic. We're needing to buy local, stay local, don't go outside the bubble and everything else. So we should be encouraging as much as local procurement as possible. And if you heard the news just yesterday, President-elect Biden is saying, buy American. You know, buy American. They're not going to be buying from anybody who doesn't manufacture goods in the U.S. of A. So, if you ask me, this parochialism is now going to be taking a shift, not just locally, nationally, but perhaps internationally, because of this pandemic, because they want to keep the local economies going. So, I think that if there is any wiggle room to allow for a local preference, now is the time.
Thank you. Councillor Russell, I don't see your name, but did you want to close?
Yeah, thank you very much. I would simply appreciate consideration, as I've already said, for a review and a refresh of this, if there is anything that has changed. I do suspect that there isn't anything. I do suspect that this will be the fastest report. Councillor Mason has already sent around the links to the previous reports. But I would simply appreciate consideration for this. We do need to spend money locally. We aren't able to get any money from the tourism sector. That sector is pretty much dead. And we are looking at office spaces as well closing, which will have an impact on various other things, most notably home property tax. And what we need to do is make sure that we spend our residents' money as wisely as possible, appreciating our residents. And if there is an ability to buy local, then I would certainly appreciate us moving ahead with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Russell. Are we ready for Councillor Daigle-Gammon?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just as a new councillor, I'm wondering, I really appreciate Councillor Russell's motion and for buying. It's very important in these days. But because there are two reports, and as a new councillor, not having had the opportunity to read them or to understand them, I'm just wondering if there's an opportunity to defer so that we could read those and understand it better. Perhaps
So
not.
I think Mr. Dubé has indicated he's circulating the reports to council. I don't know if that helps you on this vote or not, but not sure what else we can do at this point, Councillor.
Thank you.
Just consent.
Well, a motion to defer is always in order, and I would second that. We could defer it to the next meeting, and that gives people a chance to read them.
Councillor Cleary moves to defer, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Cleary moves to defer to, let's say, December the 1st, as opposed to next week, which is a special meeting just on the housing.
Second that deferral. Mancini.
So there's a motion to defer on the floor, seconded by moved by Councillor Cleary, seconded by Councillor Mason. Discussion on the motion, Councillor. Okay. So we have a motion to defer, and I believe it would be the December 1st meeting, Phoebe. And those, in the meantime, councillors have an opportunity to look at the reports. So on the motion to defer, ready for the question?
Question.
Councillor Russell,
In favor?
Councillor Outfit,
Yes.
Councillor Daigle-Gammon,
Voting in favor of the motion?
Councillor Hensby,
Affirmative.
Councillor Kent,
In favor.
Councillor Purdy,
In favor?
Councillor Austin,
In favor?
Councillor Mancini,
In favor of the deferral.
Councillor Mason,
In favor.
Councillor Smith,
Yes.
Councillor Cleary,
Yes.
Councillor Morris,
In favor.
Councillor Tuttle,
In favor.
Councillor Stoddard,
In favor of the motion?
Councillor Lovelace,
Voting yes.
Deputy Mayor Blackburn,
Voting yes to defer.
Mayor Savage,
Okay, in favor. So that motion carries. We will come back to that. Thank you, Councillor Russell and Councillor Daigle-Gammon. 12.2, Councillor Russell, preferential or prejudicial
Thank you very much.
language.
Thank you very much. I move that Halifax Regional Council request a staff report that identifies any form of preferential or prejudicial language related to race in any HRM bylaws or administrative orders.
Second for that?
Second that.
Councillor Hensby, Councillor Russell?
Thank you. The essence of this is that I would like to see us in a place where we are able to look at the bylaws, look at the administrative orders, set an example, and make sure that we don't have anything that speaks to preferring or any prejudicial language. We have done the same type of thing with the with gender as we have come across the different administrative orders or bylaws. We have removed gender, and the CAO has been incredibly good at a zero tolerance policy on anti-Black racism and on moving forward with the social programs that we have. I believe this motion is premature. I have had lots of conversations over the past week. I certainly had a lot of conversations prior to the past week about this motion and this intent. I would like to see us have a level playing field where we don't make judgments based on gender, based on race, based on anything other than merit and who the person is. And unfortunately, we're not there. And at this point, this motion was to try and counter what we have been seeing in the past number of years. And I don't think we're ready for it yet. I would like to see us remove this language. It would be an ideal world if we did, but we aren't there yet. So at this point, I would like to withdraw this motion.
Councillor wishes to withdraw the motion. Phoebe, what do we need to do to make that happen?
The permission of the seconder.
That's correct. Where the motion was duly moved and seconded, we would need permission of the seconder and a general agreement amongst council.
Seconder, okay with the removal of this from the agenda?
Well, I'll like to say a couple words, as Councillor Russell said. You know, it's time for some of our bylaws and administrative orders to be brought up.
Just a sec, Councillor, we'll have to put you on the list. If you're not going to second it, then if it's going to go on the floor, then I'm going to follow the order of people who want to speak to it.
Well, I think they should be spoken to, and then we decide if we want to move it forward or defer it or defeat it. So,
okay. Thank you, Councillor. Councillor has asked. The seconder hasn't agreed, so it's on the floor. Councillor Stoddart.
Hi, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I did have an opportunity to speak to Councillor Russell today about this motion, and I understand the good intentions of Councillor Russell, but I do think that removing preferential or prejudicial language related in any ways to HRM bylaws or administration orders in the case of BIPOC, which is Black, Indigenous, people of color, would be a loss. It could mean the loss of the ability to self-identify, which now allows Black and Indigenous persons to be advantaged and treated fairly in job applications, for example. Some of the terms that we use now, Black Lives Matter, are they affected? I looked at report 11.1-24, which was endorsed in September 22nd. It was the African Nova Scotia Road to Economic Prosperity Action Plan. So the term African, as used in African Nova Scotia, appears at least 50 times in this document. How would that read if this motion was passed? Secondly, who would declare that the language was preferential or prejudicial? It's not the language you use, but it's actions taken. And I agree with Councillor Russell. We're just not there yet. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mason.
Thank you, Mayor. I hope this gets withdrawn. So just a brief recap, especially for the new councillors and the people at home. Just a couple of months ago, we did vote to pass a social procurement policy that quite deliberately has discriminatory language in it, that deliberately makes it so that people of color and Indigenous people have the hiring and the procurement weighted in a small amount in their favor. Why did we do that? Well, we did that for a lot of reasons, but it was best captured when Senator Bernard came and talked to us about anti-Black racism. We are trying to take steps to help ensure equitable access to hiring and to contracting to overcome 400 years of systemic racism and anti-Black violence. Right? That is what we are doing. And simply saying, well, there's no racist language in our bylaws, so everybody's being treated equally, so everybody has equal access, is ignoring the fundamental fact that we have 400 years of oppression that people are trying to overcome to be able to access those contracts and be able to access that hiring. And so there's no way I'm going to vote for this unless it comes back completely rewritten to specifically exclude the social procurement policy and hiring policy, because that would be undoing something that we've been struggling to move toward here at council that I'm most proud of. It's not even 6 months old. So, you know, we need to continue on this path of helping to empower people that history has tried to marginalize and has succeeded in marginalizing. And this is not ancient history. This isn't even a generation ago in Africville. This is the Wortley Report. And these are the Employee Service Review, where we know as an organization, HRM has behaved in a racist fashion, not decades ago, but years ago and months ago. So, you know, we have a lot of work to do, and I think this goes against everything we've been trying to do, and I can't support it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Go to Councillor Cleary, who was just shortly after Councillor Mason on my list. Councillor Cleary.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I'll echo everything that's been said so far, and with all the respect I can muster, that's not how systemic racism works. If you think about well, street checks as an example. There's no bylaw or policy that says you have to stop Black people in Halifax 6 times more than you stop white people. There just isn't, but it happened. So with systemic racism, you look at what are the outcomes that are happening and what's the process we have in place that's allowing it to happen. And 9 times, I would say 9.9 times out of 10, it's not because of the language that's there, it's because of the structural and systemic biases built into the systems that we have. And so we do these things not because of the language that's there. And in fact, as has been pointed out, the language that we have been putting in the last few years is exactly to level the playing field, to give that hand up for communities that have been marginalized and kept down for generations. So you know, if you think about the best ways that we can support the goals that I think you're articulating, Councillor Russell, is to support Black Lives Matter, support the recommendations in the Wortley Report, support the NCO office, support all of the things that Halifax is doing and do more of them. Like, we need a lot more action. And so I would be surprised and incredibly impressed if any of our bylaws contain any language that we're systemically racist, because that's just not how it works. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Lovelace.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Russell, for putting forward this this motion. I think it's really important that we do have this conversation around and also identify, you know, what it means to have preferential and prejudicial language. Certainly, you know, in thinking about all of the different policies and administrative orders and so on, all the documentation that HRM produces over the years is quite significant. To request a staff report to review all of that, specifically to just look at race, I think misses the whole point of ensuring that we are building an equitable society. And so what I think that we need to look at is how is it that we need to advance the perspectives of Black, Indigenous, and people of color, trans people, people who are marginalized within our society, and how do we build cultural competence as a council, as a city, build cultural competence within our staff and our community at large. You know, we are the city, the province of the Wortley Report. We are the province for the home for colored children. We are the country of the missing Indigenous, missing, murdered Indigenous women and girls. We're the country of reconciliation and truth. So in looking at that perspective, I can't support this motion. I think what we need to do is turn it on its heels and look at it from a way to advance equity in our society and ensure that we're doing all that we can to right the wrongs of history, to create an anti-oppressive environment, and ensure that as a municipality, we're doing what we can to support those who are marginalized. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hensby.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor and Council. One reason why I didn't want to withdraw my second is I wanted to have a dialogue on this matter, and I think the eloquent words we just heard from Councillor Lovelace is one of the examples of and what we need to hear. And I'm glad that we have had this dialogue, and I'll leave other councils to speak. But I'm hoping that someday that we do live in a utopian world, but we will never get there until we we learn from the past and fix our issues in the present day and live for a better tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Kent.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to keep mine short. I just want to make sure we're clear on which motion we are considering. Is there was a motion put forward to move it, and then there is a motion to withdraw it. Is that a motion? Because no, the withdrawing, like I just need clarity.
So the mover asked to have it withdrawn. The seconder did not. So we went to the speakers list. The mover could, I suppose, now ask to have it withdrawn if that was his wish.
And is that a vote, or is that just a?
If he moves to have it withdrawn and the seconder supports and there's general agreement of council, I think that we would withdraw it. Phoebe, correct, or John?
Okay, thank you. I just want to make sure when I hear people saying whether or not they were supporting or not supporting, I wanted to be clear what they were referring to. And thank you. This dialogue is important, and we have a lot of things to consider as we go forward. And when I first saw it, I read it quickly, and it seemed to me that it was something that was meant to be a positive take on change, positive change. I had an opportunity to discuss that, and when we do have these conversations, it allows that dialogue, that give and take, and I think that I would like to see, and COVID is preventing some of it, but I would like us to have more forums where we can have further conversations that are about just informing each other in the future. So if this motion did that for us today, great, but I think the conversation is just the tip of the iceberg of what we need to have. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Russ, I don't see your name on the list. If you wish to speak, you can. If not, we'll just go to the vote. It's your call.
Thank you very much. This motion, again, this is, I think it is 20 years too early. I hope it is only 20 years too early. I hope we're in a place in 20 years where we can look to where we have solved the rest of the problems, where we have put enough emphasis on making sure that we get rid of any of the societal problems that are appearing to be racism. We certainly do have a long and dark history of racism within Halifax, and this is something that that I'm not terribly proud of. But I hope we are in a place later on where we can consider looking at just making this type of thing a little bit more meaningful where it actually isn't needed. So I would still like to withdraw the motion.
Seconder?
And with that, I'll second that and I'll concur with the withdrawal.
Thank you.
Is there concurrence that we withdraw the motion? We allow the withdrawal of the motion?
Agreed. Agreed.
Phoebe, that can be withdrawn then?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, we'll consider that motion withdrawn with the consent of council.
Thank you. We'll move to item 12.3, standing under Councillor Mancini.
There, sorry, the mute was taking its time, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to put the following motion on the floor that the Halifax Regional Council request a staff report and recommendation with respect to amendments to Administrative Order 2020-009 ADM, the COVID-19 Administrative Order, to enable in-person public hearings and other changes resulting from the evolution of the restated order of the Chief Medical Officer of Health under Section 32 of the Health Protection Act 2004. So moved.
Second, Lisa.
Seconded by the deputy. Go ahead, Councilor Mancini.
Thank you, Deputy, for seconding that. So, colleagues, you know, it's interesting. When COVID-19 entered our world here in HRM, this council has not missed a beat. We just finished up our budget deliberations and presented a budget we were all proud of. And then we had to go back to the drawing board and come up with a new budget because of COVID-19. And we did all this virtually. And we had several meetings, back-to-back meetings, long meetings to fill that, to identify a gap of $85 million. We carried on with our regular schedule of regional council meetings and community council meetings. And now we have other community meetings that are coming back, all virtually. We haven't missed a beat. And no disrespect to our colleagues down the street, province, where they've had grave difficulty in getting together. We have not had that difficulty. However, when it comes to public hearings, we've had public hearings, and we as a council have worked quite well in those public hearings. However, there's been a disadvantage, in my opinion, of our residents that wanted to participate in public hearings. It's very difficult. They don't have the benefit of MS Teams calling in. It's very difficult for them to hear. It's difficult for them to see the presentation. It's not the same transparency that we normally have and that we're normally proud of. So what I'm asking here today is a change to the COVID-19 AO. My understanding, if I can ask Mr. Traves to speak to this, it's rather a simple thing if we have agreement here of changing some wording. If I understand it correctly, changing the wording from shall have virtual meetings to may have virtual meetings. And I'm not suggesting in any way, colleagues, that we should change all of our public hearings that are in front of us to in person. It's very easy to identify. For example, tonight at 6 o'clock, we have a public hearing. I don't believe there's going to be a whole lot of challenges to tonight's meeting. I don't know if there's even a speaker list, anybody on the speaker list. But it's very easy for us to identify, well in advance when we know of a public hearing where we'll have 15, 20, maybe 100, even more people that want to speak. Doing that virtually is very difficult. And look at our community council meetings that have public hearings. We have facilities nearby that we can utilize. Here at Regional Council, we have the Convention Center. Unfortunately, it has lots of vacancies. So we could easily have a public hearing at a Convention Center and keep social distancing and follow all protocols. Community councils could take place in chambers here at City Hall and then move to an appropriate spot. Harbour East Marine Drive, we're in Alderley Landing. We have a beautiful theater that exists. We could do social distancing and so that makes me ask. I asked that the maybe solicitor could just speak to that. Did I get that correct on changing the language? And then the second part of the question would be, how long would it take to make this change if approved today?
Mr. Traves?
Mr. Mayor, through you to council. So the second part of the question is probably where I would start in terms of how long. It's not quite as simple as changing administrative order. There is practical aspects and questions in terms with respect to the process that was engaged with respect to maintaining oversight. There is an obligation under the current rules, and I expect going forward for the organization that is hosting an event to maintain oversight. And there's potential for liability, which we have to go through in terms of is a chair the appropriate person to maintain oversight with respect to the requirement to maintain masks and social distancing, and how do you do that while chairing a meeting, or does that fall to the CAO? So there's some portions to that. Okay. Yes, and then the easiest part is changing the AO. It's more one of how do you practically administer this, given things like the Westray law and others, and we would hate to be responsible for having hosted a so-called super spreader event. And then looking around to say, well, who's accountable for that? It's usually the chair of the meeting, and that could be a challenge.
Well, thank you for that. So, colleagues, I do hope that you will support this. I understand the potential liability that may exist. We have to do it properly, and I'm not suggesting every public hearing has to be in person. I believe that Councillor Cleary may even have some comments with regard to live streaming some of our community councils. I think it's worthwhile that we discuss this at the same time. So hopefully everyone supports this. Thank you.
Thank you, Council. Just remind everybody this is a request for a staff report and recommendation at this time. It would come back. Councillor Cleary.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I support the motion for the staff report because I think it's a good idea to look at different ways that we can bring the public into our process. And clearly, with COVID-19, it creates a real dilemma in terms of we want input, but we need people to stay safe. And so if there's a way that staff can look at this and Councillor Mancini mentioned things like the convention center, do we build a glass booth with a camera and a microphone where people can go in, almost like a speaker's corner, and go in for their few minutes? But then does it have to be wiped down, or do we have to wait in between? And so I agree with the solicitor, and I expect Mr. Dubé has lots of thoughts on this as well as our clerk staff. So yeah, I would love to see staff think about this, come back with something. How can we do it? But the imperative is it's got to be safe.
Absolutely.
I agree with the solicitor in that. So I do also, and this is I'm conflicted because I actually want to see us do more online stuff. And Councillor Mancini mentioned our standing committee. And where we are doing council virtually, we were starting to do our committees in person again, but I was just looking, 5 new COVID cases in Nova Scotia today, 2 yesterday, 2, and then 6. So, the numbers are not high, but clearly over the next number of weeks and months, I don't think we're going to be having a lot of in-person stuff. So staff have some time to think about this, because I don't think we're in a rush to get people at the convention center or down at City Hall. And so I will support the staff report, and I do want our staff to look at basically openness. How do we bring people into our process, whether that's in person, in a safe way, and continuing to make our meetings more available? And certainly when COVID-19 is finally over in the next year or longer, whenever it happens to finally come to an end with the vaccine and such, but all the lessons we're learning over the last 7-8 months and the lessons we will continue to learn over the next year, when we're finally all back together again in person, I want us to still be doing virtual things and bringing people in that way, because I think it's opened up the doors tremendously to the number and the types of people that can participate in our process. So I don't want to have the pendulum go back too far one way or too far the other way, but I certainly do want the spirit of transparency and openness to override all of this, with, of course, safety being paramount. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Outset.
Thank you, Mayor, and both Tony and Sean have touched on a lot of what I was thinking, but the challenges, I know in Bedford, and I dare say in Fall River as well, that we have some controversial subjects coming forward, and they will be meetings that I lovingly refer to. The people are used to bringing out their pitchforks and torches to, and there'll be 100 to 200 of them, and the perception out there, and it's not correct, but the perception's out there because kids are in school, and there's 30 of them crammed into a small room, that we could be holding public meetings. And that's a perception that we're dealing with. I don't support that, but it is a perception. So I think those two preceding me here articulated this very well. We have to look at doing things differently. Dr. Strang is mentioning now today community spread for the first time in a while. So this will change things, but I am very concerned about how we're going to handle these larger and more controversial sessions. I know that the Home for Colored Children session, I think, went quite well, but that was quite labor intensive and technology intensive and whatnot, but maybe that's something we could look at. But I know in my own district and in some other ones that we are going to be having some large and controversial over the next few months sessions. And certainly they're going to have to be run over several nights. Certainly, I think it's going to have to be, we'll have to change that if you're not on the list to speak and something comes up during night one of the session or part one of the session, that you may have to find a way to be able to speak. There's all kinds of things that we're going to have to look at here, as Sean and Tony said, while keeping us safe. So anyway, happy to support this. I think we need to have this discussion, and I look forward to hearing the suggestions that are back. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cuttle.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I do appreciate that this is a motion for a staff report and it will be coming back. So I won't take up too much time. I think Councillor Cleary and others have already addressed many of the concerns I had. But the thing for me is that we don't know the time frame of what we're looking at with COVID, and it could be years. So whatever we look at doing, I think it needs to contain a high degree of flexibility so that we can adapt as situations change. It needs to consider risk moving forward, as we know there are some more vulnerable populations than others. So, you know, I think it's about accommodation. You know, in how we enable more people to participate in local governance, and ensuring that we have that transparency. So I will just leave it there, and I look forward to seeing the staff report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kent.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was pleased to be part of a conversation with the councillor and others at Harbour East Marine Drive around an informal group talking about these kinds of things, and at that time I certainly support and I still do, I think, support this report. Well, anyway, I do support the report, but I want to remind folks that so the perception is absolutely correct. There are it's easy to slip into the habits of in-person meetings and such. As a member of a community who has had, will have, and I hope not huge, but has already had a family of schools that have community spread happening, and then we know that there are community members in some of the other smaller and earlier schools. This virus is, it's it has a mind of its own, of course, and we don't know what's going to happen, but I have community members and myself who all of a sudden were shrinking back and saying, no, this in-person activity we've got to constrain it. So I'm just speaking certainly as a parent and as a community member here as well, not just as a counselor, that the spread is real, and the experts far more knowledgeable than I am are saying this could be this is the second wave, and could be worse than the first. So I don't want us to jump too fast. But on this report in particular, I do understand that if we look at the words may, we also need to realize that that's a may not as well. When you have one that's may or may not, I think whatever report comes back, we have to have some identification of whose call is that? What would be the criteria that would allow for us to may or may not? Do we want to take on that kind of risk of not only of making a bad decision if we decide to go forward, and we are offering an opportunity for community spread, but also the risk of criticism of it may be positioning one public hearing in an advantage or disadvantage because one is because we don't have uniformity in how we're allowing people and offering people the opportunity to speak. You and I think everyone here can realize that when you're in person, you just feel someone's passion, you feel it differently, and that's a good thing, but it also can be a little bit of an unfair advantage in any particular application. So I just hope that whatever staff comes back, they'll give some consideration to that, because that would be a risk that's very real.
Thank you, Councillor Purdy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to speak to say I very much support Councillor Mancini's motion here. I feel that within the safety of the guidelines of public health mandates, mask wearing, social distancing, hand washing, that it's, I think, imperative to give individuals some discretionary autonomy. And even if it means, I understand the liability factor, and that's probably very important, but would there be like a waiver that people could sign saying they understand the risk that they are taking? They take full liability. I'm not sure, but the may or may not wording, I think, is crucial. And I do agree with Councillor Kent that who would that decision come down to make that decision. But to have the discretionary ability to make that decision and to have people be in person again, we're humans. This is kind of an important part of being human, is to be interacting with fellow humans. And so however we can do that safely, I think it's important to look into that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Morse.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess I just want to raise a concern. I'm in favor of more public participation in meetings, and I'm concerned that this might weaken or water down public participation. An example is the Community Council coming up tomorrow night, the Halifax and West Community Council. And there is a very important development project coming forward in that meeting. For my district, it will set a precedent for my district in terms of being a very high density project. I know it's controversial with my residents. And the challenge tomorrow night is that we don't have the technical capacity to allow public participation. And so I'm very concerned as a representative of the district that we won't be hearing from citizens the way we might otherwise. So anyway, I certainly respect the need to make public health paramount, but I am concerned that this could water down the ability of the public to participate.
Thank you, Councillor Mason.
Thank you, Mayor. I think I'm stuck between what Councillor Cuttle said, which was spot on, which is we have to think about how to do our business maybe for years, right? We can't, we need to put better processes in place than the ones we initially put in at the beginning of the state of emergency and of the pandemic. And what Councillor Morse just said, I wonder if the numbers are going up and we spent a whole ton of money and time figuring out how to do a public engagement face to face. If the COVID numbers are going up, does that mean less people will come than if we could do them online? That could be where we end up. So So I think that others have called for flexibility. I would as well. We have a tendency to bring up the convention center, which is a premium facility. I would call it a Cadillac or a Lexus facility. What I imagine in my mind is more the Sackville Sports Stadium or the multipurpose room of the Forum. You know, what we need is a space, multipurpose room. I looked it up. I used to do shows there, 18,000 square feet. We could probably put 300 or 400 people in there and keep them all 10 or 15 feet apart. We would have to have work with public health and doctors trying to get a sign off on whatever proposal is to try and address those concerns, the legitimate and pressing health concerns. But it's going to be really hard if we're still in lockdown to do something on the scale of the Center Plan Package B virtually. So that's my first concern, and I would suggest that. Yeah, we can't do public hearings in Halifax Hall, and it's going to be really hard and expensive. I recall when we did the pilot project on broadcasting the community councils that it was costing us between $1,800 and $2,200 per community council to do the live broadcast from the various spaces around. That's when Halifax and West was traveling and Harbour East was traveling the way Northwest still does. So I know it's money, but we can do it, right? And it's a matter of procedural fairness to make sure everybody has access. Same time, as far as community council goes, I would put it to the chairs once we have chairs of community councils, which will be in the next short while for all of them, that we need to live broadcast the community councils, not just when we have a public hearing, but all of those meetings. I mean, the public writes us about a million things, but about 70 or 80% of our job really is land use regulation and land use planning, and that's happening at the community council level. And you know, we are in a state of emergency, and I'm not trying to restart the community battles between Northwest and Dartmouth and East and Halifax, but the easy solution for community councils is that they all start meeting in Halifax Hall, where we have the broadcast facility. Just as an interim, we should have permanent facilities with cameras everywhere. I totally agree. We need them in Alderney. We need them in Alderney. We need something out in Bedford Sackville. But right now, while we're in a state of emergency, I think we need to consider that. We need to get community councils on air. So I will support the motion, but I think that we really need to think about how we're going to make sure that this land use. Oh, there's the Dartmouth flag being flown by Tony Mancini in the corner of my eye. Thank you, Tony. So as a proud Dartmouthian, I support getting cameras into Alderney someday, but I think we need to take steps right away to make that available to the public. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Daigle-Gammon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Mancini, for the motion. I would actually speak in support of it as well. As Councillor Oathead said, in our district, there are some very contentious developments, and the requirement for public engagement is high, and their need for public engagement is really high. We had a public hearing as part of our Northwest Community Council, and there was just a small technical issue, but that was only with a couple of persons who were phoning in. And so when you get to those bigger issues, then you're going to have a lot of community engagement. I think that we need to make sure that we've given everybody the opportunity that they need. I worry and I wonder if the staff report maybe could include what is the risk associated with the amount of public engagement and the access to public engagement that we would allow. So is there a risk for someone on an appeal to say, I was on the list, technically I didn't get in, those kinds of things, and what is the impact of that on any decisions, and especially any decisions that have a time frame associated with them after the meeting, something like that. So I would like to know if the staff report could speak to what is the risk. I completely understand everybody's need for the safety and to balance it. Sometimes we can think about hybrid. You know, can part of the meeting be virtual? Can part of the meeting be in person? So again, I would speak in support of the motion only because I do feel that the general public is feeling less and less engaged and maybe not having as much opportunity. We also have internet desert, so some people for a virtual public hearing, they have to leave their home, they have to leave their neighborhood in order to participate. So the lack of access for some people, I think we need to have that as consideration as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Lovelace.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm pleased to see this motion. Thank you, Councillor Mancini. I just want to concur with my colleague, Councillor Daigle-Gammon. I agree that we do need to acknowledge the risk, also the access of individuals. I know here in my district, District 13, people can't access the internet. And I just wonder if we could add to this motion and consider not only to enable in-person public hearings, but also an alternative public engagement options. Certainly to your point, Councillor Mason, at the beginning of all this in March, a new system was put in place, new formats, and what have we done to measure the effectiveness? What kind of analysis have we done to review how effective we've been over the last 6 months to ensure that we are offering, to hear from the public and giving them as many options as possible. So I would like to ask staff that question around the measurement of the effectiveness of online public hearings. And I also do want to note that we should probably, just in this motion, the Chief Medical Officer of Health, the spelling of health just needs to change. But the other thing I guess that I'm worried about is the future, and not having the ability, of course, to rub that little crystal ball and not knowing how effective we're going to be in order to include and involve the public in these decisions. This is their city. And so I just feel like we need alternative formats. A public hearing doesn't have to be 2 or 3 hours. Could it be 2 or 3 days, so that the option is open to include more voices, give them more time, find ways to get to a computer at the library, give them a little bit of space to actually, offer their opinions and their thoughts on these important decisions. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Russell.
Thank you very much. I agree with the notion of giving more options. And I agree with the notion of extending the availability to a lot of people. I recognize that there are huge challenges with making it in person and would not want to increase the risk. I recognize just how much of a challenge liability would be. This is potentially leading into a second wave, locally and nationally. We don't know what it's going to look like. We don't know what the Chief Medical Officer of Health is going to be doing as far as shutting things down. So I would like to see us be able to say to people, yes, you can certainly connect with the meeting. You can connect in person or online. And if you cannot connect in person, then you can still connect online. Nearly a year ago, I went to a meeting of the Advisory Committee on Accessibility, and I dropped in there, and it was great. The options that were there, as far as having someone who was translating the meeting with American Sign Language. There were electronic options for people who were not able to be in the room. There were all sorts of options for people who were not able to be there to be able to join the meeting. Looking at the schedule of meetings that we have for this week, looking at the agenda page that we have up on halifax.ca, there are 5 meetings: the Board of Police Commissioners, the Advisory Committee on Accessibility, this council meeting, the Active Transportation Advisory Committee, and the Youth Advisory Committee. The public is able to join 2 of those meetings and is not able to join 3 of those meetings. So we are having 3 of those meetings in the privacy of those meetings. If you are invited and have a connection to those meetings because you're staff or you're a committee member, then that's great. And if not, you're not able to join that meeting. So we need to do a better job of recognizing that we've been in the pandemic for a while. We've had 8 months of working to make sure that we provide as much access as possible. And I think there are things that we can do to extend that a little bit more and make sure that all of the meetings that we used to have in public, we are still able to have in public. It just won't be in public in the same way. So I'm certainly going to be supporting this, and certainly hope to see more options as far as making it so that the public can join the meetings that we are having. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Austin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll support this. It is for a report. In principle, I mean, it doesn't say we must do meetings in public. It just, as I understand Councillor Mancini's motion, it's just about introducing the options. And when he was doing his homework on this, you know, it's amazing how quickly things have changed in 2020 from week to week. Just a couple of weeks ago, we were at a point of not really having any COVID cases, and people had a bit of a relaxed feel about it. Certainly the mood has changed quite significantly over the last little while as we see cases again showing up in the community, and a second wave very much rolling through the rest of the country. And the jury out whether or not we will be spared of that or not. So there's a great deal of uncertainty. I don't think it's a bad thing to have options open. We don't know, as it was either Councillor Tuttle or Councillor Morris pointed out, we don't know how long any of this is going to last. We could be in virtual formats for another 2 years for all we know. We don't know when the vaccine or health improvements might change our realities again. So you know, I think it's worth taking a look at this. The piece that I want to just underline, and it's an issue that a couple of the other councillors have raised, which is the lack of public access to some of our online meetings. We had one meeting at Harbour East in which, because there was no public hearings, it wasn't broadcast. And I realized that there's a challenge with staffing, that these things are fairly resource intensive, and the emergency minute requirements makes it challenging for staff. To me, we have to have a discussion at some point about, well, what is the appropriate level? To me, doing these meetings and providing minutes versus broadcasting them when we have the ability, it's just a matter of resources haven't been applied to it. It's very hard for me to support that. And at Harbour East, Councillor Mancini and I agreed at that meeting that wasn't broadcast. If it came to any substantive discussion, we would move to defer because we were not comfortable having any of that in private. So I think there has to be some thought around this, and there probably are potential budget implications because we can't expect our people to deliver more when they just don't have the current capabilities. I will say from a Dartmouth perspective, where if it's a matter of just easing things for broadcasting where the public can't attend anyway, there's no issue for me in going across to City Hall. If we're asking members of my community to go across to Halifax City Hall for their community council, that's different. But for me to go across, or for other councillors to go to City Hall, actually broadcast it and make ourselves available again to the public, I don't think that would be a bad thing. Thank you.
Thank you. If there's nobody else to speak on this, we'll go to the vote.
Question?
Phoebe?
Councillor Outset?
Yeah, 16 is first. I'm happy to support. Thank you.
Councillor Daigle-Gammon?
Voting in favor of the motion.
Councillor Hensby?
Affirmative.
Councillor Kent? Councillor Kent?
Can't hear you, Councillor Kent.
Sorry, I was, as you can hear my dog, I was hoping that he would stop, but he hasn't, so I'm in favor.
Councillor.
So's the dog.
Councillor Purdy?
I'm in favor.
Councillor Austin?
In favor.
Councillor Mancini?
In favor of the motion.
Councillor Mason?
In favor.
Councillor Smith? I think Councillor Smith is with FCM at the moment. Councillor Cleary?
Yes.
Councillor Morris?
In favor.
Councillor Cuttle?
Yes.
Councillor Stoddard?
In favor of the motion.
Councillor Lovelace?
In favor.
Deputy Mayor Blackburn?
Voting yes on the motion.
Councillor Russell,
In favor?
Mayor Savage,
I'll support it. That motion carries. Thank you, Councillor Mancini.
Thank you.
So, colleagues, have 3 in-camera items. One has been withdrawn, I understand, which is 13.2, correct? Has been deferred?
That's
That's what I heard. Does somebody want to move the in-camera minutes of September 22nd and September 29th and 30th?
I'll do that, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Mancini moves the minutes, seconded by
Seconded.
Councillor Hensby. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So the minutes are carried. I'll do notices of motion at this time. Deputy Mayor Blackburn, beginning with you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Please take notice that the next special meeting of Halifax Regional Council to be held on Tuesday, December 1st, 2020. I intend to request a staff report to initiate the process to amend the land use bylaw for Sackville to increase the footprint and height requirements for accessory buildings on larger lots in non-serviced areas.
Thank you. Councillor Cleary.
Thank you, Your Worship. Take notice that at a future meeting of Halifax Regional Council, I propose to introduce a policy pursuant to Section 325 of the Halifax Regional Municipality Charter, Administrative Order SC 99, the purpose of which is to close a portion of St. Margaret's Bay Road, Halifax, described as Parcel A, and subject to the outcome of a public hearing, consider adopting the proposed Administrative Order SC 99.
Councillor Mancini.
Just bear with me. Yeah, there you go. Take notice that at a future meeting of the Halifax Regional Council, I intend to move the council consider adopting by policy a public participation program, the purpose of which is to establish a program to consider amendments to the Burnside Comprehensive Development District Policy, the secondary planning, municipal planning strategy for Dartmouth, to ensure that this policy carries out the goals and directions found in the regional municipal planning strategy and integrated mobility plan. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Anybody else with notices of motion?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I have one.
Councillor Cuddle, is it?
Yep.
Go ahead, Councillor Cuddle.
Take notice that at a future meeting of the Halifax Regional Council, I intend to move that council consider adopting by policy a public participation program, the purpose of which is to establish a program to consider amendments to the Halifax Municipal Planning Strategy and Halifax Mainland Land Use Bylaw to redesignate and rezone a portion of 530 Herring Cove Road in Halifax from the institutional designation to the high-density residential designation and the park and institutional zone to the R4 multiple dwelling zone.
Thank you. Councillor Morse.
Please take notice that at a future meeting of Halifax Regional Council, I intend to move that council consider adopting by policy a public participation program, which includes a drop-in style pop-up session, the purpose of which is to establish a program to consider amendments to the municipal planning strategy for Halifax and the land use bylaw for Halifax Mainland, to review the types of development permitted on Westerwald Street in Fairview, including a potential mix of townhouses, stacked townhouses, and multi-unit buildings. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? If not, then I'll accept a motion to go in camera. Remind people that we have a public hearing at 6 o'clock and we have a meeting of council next Tuesday, the 24th, that we've added on the Rapid Housing Initiative. Does somebody want to suggest that we go in camera?
So moved.
Moved. Seconded. Seconded that we go in camera? Deputy Mayor?
Seconds it.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, just for council colleagues, we click out of this screen and we go into our in-camera screen. And I'll see you there. Let's go right away. All right?
And just
Thank
to
you all.
confirm, if I might, Mr. Mayor,
Please.
So when you'll go to your in-camera meeting, we're going to be closing out of this meeting shortly, and then at 6 p.m. when you return for your public hearing, we will be in a new meeting appointment, just to clarify.
Okay, everybody clear? All right, let's go right into our in-camera session.